This dance is for the woman I've loved for 10 years.
I stood there in my white dress
Look at the
bouquet
detail on
trembling
this
in
one.
my
Zoom in
hands
right
as my
there.
husband of exactly 3 hours
Oh, wow,
took the
that is
microphone.
absolutely stunning.
"This dance
The
is for
lace
the
is
woman I've
perfect.
loved for 10 years," he announced to our 200 guests. I smiled, thinking he meant me. Then I watched him walk past me and extend his hand to my sister Rebecca, and that's when I decided to show them both what happens when you betray Sarah Mitchell. Let me take you back to where this nightmare really began, because what happened at that wedding was just the tip of an iceberg that had been forming for years. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm 32 years old, though I feel like I've aged a decade in the past few months. I work as a senior financial analyst at Morrison & Associates, one of the top accounting firms in Seattle. I make good money, own my own condo in Capitol Hill, and I've built a life I'm proud of through hard work and dedication. My younger sister Rebecca is 28, a perpetual grad student studying art history, living off our parents' money, and whatever she can charm out of people around her. Growing up, Rebecca was always the pretty one, the fun one, the one who could light up a room just by walking into it. I was the responsible one, the one who got straight A's, the one who helped Mom with dinner, while Rebecca practiced her latest dance routine or painted in her room. Our parents never hid the fact that Rebecca was their favorite. "Sarah's so independent," Mom would say, which was code for, "Sarah doesn't need our attention." Meanwhile, Rebecca got drama classes, art supplies, a car for her 16th birthday, while I'd had to save up for mine working at the local grocery store. I never resented Rebecca for it. That's the pathetic truth. I loved my little sister. I helped her with her college applications. I lent her money when she was short on rent. I listened to her boy drama for hours on my phone. When she called crying at 2 in the morning because some guy had ghosted her, I was the one who drove across town with ice cream and tissues. And then I met Marcus. Marcus Chen was everything I'd never expected to find. I'd always been so focused on my career that dating felt like an afterthought, something other people did while I was building my future. But Marcus changed that. I met him at a client dinner 2 years ago. He was the tech consultant our firm had brought in to overhaul our digital infrastructure. While everyone else saw a job, Marcus saw an opportunity to completely revolutionize how we operated. He was brilliant funny, and he actually listened when I talked about my work instead of his eyes glazing over. On our first date, we talked for 6 hours at a small Italian restaurant in Fremont, closing down the place without even realizing it. He told me about growing up in San Francisco, about his parents who'd immigrated from Taiwan with nothing and built a successful restaurant business. He understood the pressure of being the responsible one, of carrying family expectations on your shoulders. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Not as capable Sarah, reliable Sarah, but as a woman who deserved to be cherished. Marcus would send me flowers at work for no reason. He'd learn recipes to cook my favorite meals. When I had a stressful week, he'd show up at my apartment with takeout and a movie, knowing I needed to decompress. He made me feel beautiful, something I'd never quite felt, growing up in Rebecca's shadow. 6 months into our relationship, I introduced him to my family at Sunday dinner at my parents' house in Bellevue. Mom had made her famous pot roast, and Dad was in one of his good moods telling stories about his days as a prosecutor before he retired. Rebecca showed up late as always, sweeping in wearing some vintage designer dress she'd found at a thrift store, her long blonde hair perfectly tousled in that effortless way that took her an hour to achieve. I watched Marcus's face when he saw her. Something flickered there just for a second. Interest maybe, or recognition of her beauty. But then he smiled at me, squeezed my hand under the table, and I told myself I was being paranoid. Rebecca was gorgeous. People noticed. That didn't mean anything. Dinner went well. Marcus charmed my parents with stories about his work, his travels, his ambitions. He even got my usually stern father laughing with an impression of a difficult client. When Rebecca launched into one of her long stories about her thesis on Renaissance art, complete with dramatic hand gestures, Marcus listened politely but kept his hand on my knee, his thumb drawing small circles that made me feel secure. After that, Rebecca started calling me more often. She wanted to grab coffee, go shopping, have sister time. I was thrilled. For years, Rebecca had been too busy with her own life to spend much time with boring, practical Sarah. I thought maybe we were finally building the close adult relationship I'd always wanted with my sister. She'd ask about Marcus, casually slipping questions into our conversations. What did he like to do on weekends? What was his family like? What were his dreams for the future? I answered everything openly, because that's what sisters do. They share their lives. I even showed her the beautiful antique locket Marcus had given me for our first anniversary, with both our pictures inside. "He's really thoughtful," Rebecca had said, holding the locket up to the light. "You're lucky, Sarah. Most guys don't put in that kind of effort anymore." I beamed with pride. I really am lucky. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me. What I didn't know was that Rebecca had already gotten Marcus's number from my phone weeks earlier, when I'd left it on the counter during one of our coffee dates. What I didn't know was that they'd started texting innocent at first, just Rebecca asking Marcus for advice about a guy she was seeing. Then the texts got longer, more frequent, more personal. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about how Marcus proposed. It was a Saturday evening in June, almost exactly a year ago. Marcus told me he was taking me somewhere special, but wouldn't say where. He picked me up in his Tesla, looking handsome in a tailored navy suit. We drove north out of the city toward the San Juan Islands. I kept asking where we were going, but he just smiled that mysterious smile and told me to be patient. We arrived at a private dock where a sailboat was waiting. Marcus had chartered it for the evening, complete with a captain and a catered dinner. As we sailed across the Puget Sound, the sun setting in brilliant oranges and pinks behind the Olympic Mountains, he told me how much I meant to him, how I'd changed his life, how he'd never believed in soulmates until he met me. The boat anchored in a quiet cove. String lights twinkled overhead. A violinist I hadn't noticed appeared on deck and began playing softly. Marcus got down on one knee, pulled out a blue Tiffany box, and asked me to marry him. The ring was stunning, a platinum band with a 2-carat diamond surrounded by smaller sapphires. It must have cost him 3 months' salary, maybe more. Through my tears, I said yes. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. For the first time in my careful, calculated life, I felt like I was living a fairy tale. We celebrated with champagne and the most incredible meal I'd ever had. Marcus kept kissing my hand, looking at the ring on my finger, like he couldn't believe I'd said yes. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making you happy," he promised. "You deserve everything, Sarah. Everything." I called my parents from the boat. Mom screamed with excitement. Dad demanded to speak to Marcus, giving him a gruff congratulations and a warning to take care of his daughter. Then I called Rebecca. "Oh my God, Sarah!" she squealed into the phone. "I'm so happy for you. Marcus is amazing. You guys are perfect together. When's the wedding? Can I be your maid of honor? Please say I can be your maid of honor." "Of course you can," I laughed, wiping away happy tears. "You're my sister. Who else would it be?" "I love you so much," Rebecca said, and her voice sounded so sincere that I felt a rush of warmth. "You deserve this. You've worked so hard for everything, and you deserve to be this happy." We started planning the wedding immediately. I've always been organized, so I created spreadsheets, Pinterest boards, timelines. Marcus let me take the lead, saying he just wanted me to have the wedding of my dreams. We set the date for October, giving us 16 months to plan everything perfectly. Rebecca threw herself into maid of honor duties with an enthusiasm that touched me deeply. She helped me shop for wedding dresses, sitting through hours of trying on gowns at boutiques all over Seattle. She planned my bachelorette party a weekend in Portland with my closest friends. She even offered to help with the smaller details I was stressing over, like favor bags and seating arrangements. Looking back now, I can see how calculated it all was, how she positioned herself at the center of everything, how she made herself indispensable. But at the time, I just saw my little sister finally showing up for me the way I'd always shown up for her. Marcus and I had decided to wait until marriage to live together. It was a bit old-fashioned, I knew, but I wanted to do things right. I'd seen too many friends move in with boyfriends, get comfortable, and never actually make it to the altar. Besides, the anticipation made everything feel more special, more meaningful. We'd spend weekends together, take trips, but we each had our own space. What I didn't know was that Rebecca had been showing up at Marcus's apartment in South Lake Union. She'd text him with questions about wedding planning, saying she wanted to surprise me. Then she'd suggest meeting at his place since it was closer than Starbucks. She'd bring wine. They'd sit on his couch getting closer, the conversation drifting from wedding plans to personal topics, to complaints about their lives, to confessions they shouldn't have been making. Marcus told me later, after everything fell apart, that he'd tried to resist, that Rebecca had been pursuing him, showing up in tight dresses, touching his arm, laughing at his jokes with that musical laugh of hers. He said he felt trapped, that he didn't know how to tell me without destroying my relationship with my sister. He said it just happened one night after they'd had too much wine, that it was a mistake, that he'd been trying to end it. But here's the thing about Marcus's story. It was all lies. Every word of it. The affair had started 3 months after we got engaged. I know the exact date now because I've seen the text messages, the hotel receipts, the evidence that my lawyer collected. Rebecca hadn't seduced Marcus. They'd seduced each other deliberately, gleefully behind my back while I planned a wedding and dreamed about my future. They'd been careful at first, meeting at hotels outside the city, using burner phones, creating elaborate excuses. But as the wedding approached, they'd gotten bolder, more reckless. They wanted the thrill of almost getting caught. They'd text each other during family dinners, making inside jokes that only they understood. They'd disappear at events, coming back with flushed faces and rumpled clothes, blaming it on the bathroom line or a phone call. And I noticed nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was too busy being happy. Too busy planning the perfect wedding, working on a major project at work, trying to be the perfect fiancé. Every time Marcus seemed distant, I blamed it on work stress. Every time Rebecca was too busy to meet me for our sister dates, I understood she had her thesis to work on. I made excuses for them both because I loved them. And you don't suspect the people you love of plotting your destruction. The bachelorette party in Portland should have been my first real clue that something was wrong. Rebecca had planned everything, booked us a suite at the Heathman Hotel, made reservations at the city's best restaurants, arranged for a private wine tour in the Willamette Valley. 8 of my closest friends came, including my college roommate Jessica and my work colleague Amanda. On the first night after dinner and several bottles of wine, we were in the hotel suite playing drinking games. Jessica, who'd had too much vodka, made a comment about how Rebecca seemed to know Marcus really well. "It's like she's marrying him instead of you." Jessica laughed, clearly meaning it as a joke. But Amanda, who was more sober, had given me a strange look. "She does talk about him a lot," Amanda said carefully. "I mean, more than you do sometimes." I'd laughed it off. "She's the maid of honor. She's been helping with all the wedding planning that involves him. Of course she talks about him." Rebecca had jumped in quickly. "Marcus has been so helpful with everything. He has great taste, unlike most guys. Sarah's lucky." Then she'd changed the subject, suggesting we move on to the next game, and everyone had forgotten about it. But Amanda pulled me aside later that night when Rebecca was in the bathroom. "Sarah, I don't want to overstep," she said quietly. "But has Rebecca always been this invested in your relationships?" "What do you mean, I asked, confused and a little defensive. Amanda hesitated. "It's probably nothing. But the way she talks about Marcus, it's almost like she has a crush on him. She brings him up constantly, knows all these little details about him. I just want you to be careful." I'd felt a flash of anger then. "Rebecca is my sister. She's excited about the wedding, that's all." Amanda had backed off immediately. "You're right. I'm sorry. Too much wine making me paranoid. Forget I said anything." But I hadn't forgotten. The seed of doubt had been planted even though I'd tried to ignore it. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing small things. The way Rebecca's face lit up when Marcus entered a room, how she always maneuvered to sit next to him at family dinners, the inside jokes that I didn't understand. The time I caught her wearing a perfume she said Marcus had recommended. Each time I pushed the doubts away. I was being crazy, paranoid. My sister loved me. My fiancé loved me. In a few months we'd be married and this anxiety would seem ridiculous. Then came the wedding rehearsal dinner. We'd rented out a beautiful private room at Canlis, one of Seattle's most prestigious restaurants, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Union. 40 people were there, immediate family and the wedding party. My parents had flown in from their winter home in Arizona. Marcus's parents had come from San Francisco. Everyone was excited, celebrating, toasting to our future. I was wearing a cream silk dress, feeling beautiful and blessed. Marcus looked handsome in his charcoal suit, making a speech about how he'd won the lottery the day he met me. Everyone raised their glasses, and I felt like my heart would burst with happiness. But I noticed Rebecca wasn't at the table. I scanned the room and didn't see her anywhere. I excused myself, thinking maybe she was in the restroom, and went to look for her. I found her outside on the restaurant's terrace, smoking a cigarette, even though she'd quit years ago. She was on her phone, her back to me, and I was about to call out to her when I heard what she was saying. "Tomorrow," she said into the phone, her voice low and intense. "After tomorrow, we just have to wait a little while, and then we can stop pretending. I know it's hard, baby, but we've come this far." I froze. Baby. Who was she talking to? "I love you too," Rebecca continued. "More than you know, more than she ever could." My stomach dropped to my feet. Rebecca turned then and saw me standing there. Her face went white, then red. She quickly ended the call. "Sarah, I didn't see you there. Who were you talking to?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, high and tight. "Oh, just this guy I've been seeing. Nothing serious." She plastered on a bright smile, but her hands were shaking. "We should get back inside. They're probably wondering where we are." I wanted to push to demand answers, but this was my rehearsal dinner. My wedding was tomorrow. I couldn't make a scene over a phone call I'd probably misunderstood. "Sure," I said, but something in my chest had cracked. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed in my apartment staring at the ceiling, replaying that phone call in my mind. Tomorrow, we can stop pretending. The pieces were there, but I couldn't make myself put them together. It was too awful, too unthinkable. At 3 a.m, I grabbed my phone and almost called Marcus. But what would I say? That I overheard my sister on the phone, and now I was paranoid. On the night before our wedding, I'd sound insane, so I talked myself down. Rebecca was seeing someone, that's all. The she was probably the guy's ex-girlfriend or something. I was stressed about the wedding, reading too much into nothing. Tomorrow I'd marry the love of my life, and everything would be perfect. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, one of those perfect October days in Seattle, where the sky is impossibly blue and the air is crisp with the promise of fall. I woke up early at my parents' house where I'd spent the night, according to tradition. Mom made me breakfast while Rebecca and my bridesmaids started arriving to get ready together. The house was chaos in the best way. Hair and makeup artists set up stations in the living room. Champagne flowed. My friends laughed and took selfies. Rebecca was everywhere, helping zip dresses, fixing hair, making sure everything was perfect. She seemed her normal self, bright and bubbly, and I convinced myself I'd imagined the strangeness of last night. When it was time to put on my dress, Rebecca helped me step into it carefully, pulling it up and buttoning the tiny pearl buttons down the back. It was a stunning gown-fitted lace bodice with a full tulle skirt, exactly what I'd dreamed of since I was a little girl. "You look like a princess," Rebecca said, her eyes shining with tears. "Marcus is going to die when he sees you." She hugged me carefully, mindful of my dress and makeup. "I'm so happy for you, Sarah. You're going to have the most amazing life." I hugged her back, feeling guilty for my suspicions. This was my sister, who'd been by my side through everything. "Thank you for being here, for everything you've done. I couldn't have done this without you." The ceremony was at the Woodmark Hotel in Kirkland, right on the shore of Lake Washington. We'd chosen it for the stunning views and the beautiful ballroom for the reception. As I walked down the aisle on my father's arm, I saw Marcus waiting for me at the altar, and he had tears in his eyes. In that moment, every doubt I'd had vanished. This man loved me. We were building a life together. The ceremony was beautiful. We'd written our own vows, and Marcus promised to cherish me, support my dreams, be my partner in everything. I promised to love him through whatever challenges life brought us, to build a family with him, to grow old together. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife and Marcus kissed me, I felt complete in a way I'd never felt before. The reception was everything I'd planned. The ballroom looked magical with thousands of fairy lights and cream roses everywhere. The band was perfect. The food was incredible. Our first dance as husband and wife was to At Last by Etta James, and as Marcus held me close, whispering in my ear about how happy I made him, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. Then came the speeches. My father gave a touching toast about watching his little girl grow up. Marcus's best friend told embarrassing college stories that had everyone laughing. Rebecca stood up as maid of honor, and her speech was perfect, funny and sweet, talking about our childhood and how happy she was that I'd found my soulmate. After dinner, after the toasts, after the cake cutting, the band leader announced it was time for another special dance. Marcus stood up, took the microphone, and smiled at the crowd. "I want to take a moment to honor someone very special," he said. "There's a woman here tonight who's been incredibly important to me over the past year, someone who's always been there, who understands me in a way no one else does. This dance is for the woman I've loved for 10 years. My heart swelled. 10 years was an exaggeration. We'd only been together for 2, but it was sweet. I stood up, smoothing my dress, ready to join my husband for this special moment. But Marcus walked right past me. He extended his hand to Rebecca. The room went silent. I watched frozen as my sister took his hand and let him lead her to the dance floor. The band started playing Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton. Marcus pulled Rebecca close, too close, his hand on the small of her back. They swayed together, and I saw her lean her head on his shoulder. I saw him whisper something in her ear that made her smile. I stood there in my wedding dress, bouquet still in my hand from earlier, and watched my husband dance with my sister while 200 people shifted uncomfortably in their seats, not knowing where to look. My mother grabbed my arm. "Sarah, what's happening?" I couldn't answer. I couldn't breathe. I watched them dance, watched the way they moved together like they'd done this before. Watched the way Rebecca looked up at him with such open adoration, watched the way Marcus held her like she was something precious. And that's when I knew. That's when every suspicious moment, every weird feeling, every doubt I'd pushed aside came rushing back with crystal clarity. That's when I understood what had been happening right under my nose for months. My sister and my husband were in love with each other. The song ended. Marcus kissed Rebecca's cheek, lingering too long. They walked back toward the table, and that's when Marcus seemed to realize what he'd done. His face went pale as he looked at me standing there, still frozen in place. "Sarah," he started, "I can explain." But he couldn't explain. There was no explanation that would make this okay. He'd just publicly humiliated me at my own wedding in front of everyone who mattered in my life, and for what, to honor his secret relationship with my sister Rebecca, wouldn't look at me. She was staring at the floor, her face flushed, her hands twisting together. The room was dead silent. 200 people watching, waiting to see what would happen next. My father started to stand up, his prosecutor face on. My mother was crying. Marcus's parents looked horrified. Jessica was already pulling out her phone. I had a choice in that moment. I could scream, cry, throw my bouquet at them, make the scene they deserved. Or I could play this smart. I thought about all those times Rebecca had borrowed money from me, money I'd never asked for back. I thought about the joint bank account Marcus and I had opened 3 months ago for wedding expenses, the account I'd transferred $50,000 into from my savings. I thought about my name on the lease of Marcus's apartment, something he'd suggested, for insurance purposes. I thought about the prenuptial agreement we hadn't signed because Marcus said it showed a lack of trust. And I thought about my job, about the skills I'd developed investigating financial fraud, about the network of lawyers and investigators I'd worked with over the years. So I smiled. It felt like it might crack my face, but I smiled. "How beautiful," I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. My husband honoring his sister-in-law. How thoughtful. Marcus looked confused, then relieved. He actually looked relieved. "Let's continue the celebration," I announced to the room. "This is a party after all." The band, bless them, immediately launched into an upbeat song. Slowly, awkwardly, people started moving again. Conversations resumed, though everyone was clearly talking about what had just happened. I saw phones coming out everywhere. By tomorrow, this would be all over social media. But that was fine. Let them talk. Let them speculate. Because while everyone was focused on the scandal of the dance, I was already planning my revenge. Marcus approached me, trying to take my hand. "Sarah, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking. It was just a dance, a stupid gesture. Rebecca helped plan so much of the wedding, and I wanted to acknowledge her. That's all it was." I pulled my hand away gently but firmly. "It's fine, Marcus. I'm just tired. It's been a long day." "Are you sure?" He was trying to read my face, trying to figure out if I suspected anything. "I'm sure." I kissed his cheek, playing the role of the understanding wife. "Why don't you circulate? I need to touch up my makeup." I walked to the bridal suite attached to the ballroom, my bridesmaids following behind me like a worried flock of birds. As soon as the door closed, Jessica exploded. "What the actual fuck was that, Sarah? You can't seriously be okay with what just happened." I sat down at the vanity, staring at my reflection. My makeup was still perfect. My hair was still in place. I looked like a bride who'd just married the love of her life. But inside, something had fundamentally broken and reformed into something harder, sharper, more dangerous. "I'm not okay with it," I said calmly. "But making a scene at my own wedding doesn't help anyone. It just makes me look like the victim." "You are the victim," Amanda said. "Sarah, that dance was completely inappropriate. The way they were holding each other, anyone with eyes could see there's something between them." I met her eyes in the mirror. "You tried to warn me, didn't you, at the bachelorette party?" Amanda looked miserable. "I'm so sorry. I should have said more. I should have made you listen." "Would I have?" I asked. "Would I have believed you if you told me my sister and fiancé were having an affair, or would I have gotten angry and defensive?" The room fell silent, because we all knew the answer. "So what are you going to do?" Jessica asked. I stood up, smoothing my dress once more. "I'm going to go back to my wedding reception. I'm going to smile and dance and cut the cake. I'm going to leave on my honeymoon tomorrow, as planned. And while I'm gone, I'm going to figure out exactly how to destroy them both." My friends stared at me like they didn't recognize me. Maybe they didn't. Maybe I didn't recognize myself. The old Sarah would have confronted them immediately, would have cried and demanded explanations, would have canceled the honeymoon and filed for an annulment. But the old Sarah hadn't just watched her husband publicly declare his love for her sister. The old Sarah was gone, replaced by someone who understood that the best revenge requires planning, patience, and perfect execution. I walked back into the reception with my head held high. For the rest of the night, I played my part flawlessly. I danced with my father, with Marcus's father, with old family friends. I laughed at jokes. I posed for photos. When it came time to toss the bouquet, I made sure to throw it directly at Rebecca, who caught it with a look of guilt and triumph mixed on her face. Marcus kept trying to get me alone, probably to do damage control, but I made sure we were always surrounded by people. During our last dance of the night, he held me close and whispered, "I love you so much, Sarah. You're everything to me." I looked up at him, this man I'd thought I'd spend my life with, and whispered back, "I know." But what I really meant was, I know what you did. I know what you are. And I know how to make you pay. We left the reception in a shower of sparklers and well wishes, heading to the honeymoon suite at the hotel. Tomorrow we'd fly to Bora Bora for 2 weeks of supposed paradise. Tonight I had to share a bed with a man who'd betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. In the suite, Marcus tried to initiate sex, his hands reaching for the buttons on my dress. I stopped him gently. "I'm exhausted," I said. "Can we just sleep? We have 2 weeks ahead of us." He looked disappointed, but nodded. "Of course, it's been a long day." I changed in the bathroom, taking my time removing my makeup and thinking about everything I'd learned tonight. When I came out in my silk nightgown, Marcus was already in bed. I slipped in beside him, keeping distance between us. "Sarah," he said in the darkness, "are you mad about the dance? I could have confronted him then, demanded the truth, screamed and cried and ended it right there. Instead, I said, "No, I'm not mad. I'm just processing everything. It's been an overwhelming day." He relaxed beside me. "You're amazing. You know that most women would have freaked out, but you understood it was just a gesture of appreciation." The audacity of it took my breath away. He was lying so smoothly, convincing himself of his own innocence, even as he knew exactly what that dance had meant. "Good night, Marcus," I said. "Good night, wife," he replied, and I heard the smile in his voice. He fell asleep within minutes, but I lay awake for hours staring at the ceiling of that expensive suite, still in my wedding night lingerie, planning the systematic destruction of everything my husband and sister held dear. Because here's what Marcus and Rebecca didn't understand about me. I'd spent my entire career analyzing financial fraud, finding the holes in people's stories, following the money trail to expose lies. I was patient, thorough, and I never made a move without all the facts. They thought I was naive, trusting easy to fool. They'd mistaken my love for weakness, my loyalty for stupidity. That was their first mistake. Their second mistake would be underestimating what I'd do when I finally made my move. I had 2 weeks on a tropical island to gather evidence to build my case to become the weapon they'd never see coming. The war hadn't even begun yet. But as I lay there in the darkness next to my sleeping husband, I smiled, because I knew something they didn't. In the game of revenge, the person who strikes first doesn't always win. The person who strikes smartest does. And I'd spent my entire life being the smartest person in the room. Now I just had to prove it. The flight to Bora Bora was 7 hours of pure torture. Marcus held my hand during takeoff, kissed my temple, called me Mrs. Chen for the first time. I smiled and leaned into him, playing the role of blissful newlywed while my mind raced through everything I needed to do. First class meant champagne and hot towels and a flight attendant who kept congratulating us. Marcus ordered us both champagne toasting to our future. I clinked my glass against his and took a small sip, watching him over the rim. He looked so happy, so relieved that I hadn't made a scene about the dance. He thought he'd gotten away with it. "I can't believe we're actually married," he said, squeezing my hand. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all be a dream." "It does feel surreal," I replied, which was the truth, just not in the way he thought. He pulled out his phone to show me photos from the wedding that people had already posted on social media. There we were, cutting the cake, laughing. There we were during our first dance, looking into each other's eyes. And there, in the background of several shots, was Rebecca watching us with an expression that anyone with eyes could read: longing, jealousy, hunger. "Your sister looked beautiful yesterday," Marcus said, scrolling past a photo of Rebecca in her maid of honor dress. "That color really suited her." My fingers tightened on my champagne glass. She did look nice. She's been such a big help with everything. I don't think we thanked her enough. He was fishing, trying to gauge my reaction, trying to figure out if I suspected anything. "We should send her something," I said. "Maybe a gift basket or something as a thank you." Marcus relaxed visibly. "That's a great idea. You're so thoughtful, Sarah. That's one of the things I love most about you." I excused myself to use the bathroom, locking the door behind me and staring at my reflection in the small mirror. My face looked calm, composed. Inside, I was screaming. I pulled out my phone and opened a new note titling it Evidence. Then I started listing everything I knew, every suspicious moment I could remember, every detail that might be relevant. The phone call at the rehearsal dinner, the perfume Rebecca had started wearing, the inside jokes, the way Marcus always seemed to know what Rebecca was doing where she was, the times he'd canceled plans with me because of work emergencies that now seemed suspiciously timed with Rebecca's schedule. I needed proof, real concrete proof that would hold up in court, because I was going to take Marcus for everything he had. Washington was a community property state, which meant I was entitled to half of everything we'd acquired during our marriage. The problem was, we'd only been married for 24 hours. I needed time, needed to let assets accumulate, needed to be strategic about when I pulled the trigger. When I returned to my seat, Marcus was asleep, his head tilted back, mouth slightly open. I pulled out my laptop, telling the flight attendant I had some work emails to catch up on. What I actually did was log into our joint bank account, the one we'd opened for wedding expenses. $50,000. I transferred it from my savings account 3 months ago to cover the venue, the catering, the band, all the deposits. Marcus was supposed to contribute $25,000, his share of the costs. According to the account history, he'd only put in $10,000. I took screenshots of everything, emailing them to my personal account from a burner email I created on the spot. Next, I logged into Marcus's laptop, which he'd left open on the tray table. I knew his password because he'd given it to me months ago, never imagining I'd use it against him. I went through his email carefully, methodically, looking for anything incriminating. At first, I found nothing. Then I realized I was looking in the wrong place. Marcus was too smart to use his regular email for an affair. I checked his deleted folder, his spam, his sent messages going back months. Nothing. But then I noticed something. He had a secondary email address linked to his account, one I'd never seen before. It was listed under his account settings, a Gmail address that was just random letters and numbers. I opened a new browser window and tried to log into it using Marcus's usual password. It didn't work. I tried variations, common substitutions. Nothing. Then I remembered something. 2 months ago, Marcus and I had gone to dinner at a Thai restaurant in Ballard. While we were waiting for our food, he'd gotten a notification on his phone that made him smile. When I asked what it was, he said it was his friend from college, someone named RLM sending him a funny meme. RLM, Rebecca Lynn Mitchell. I tried RLM as the password, then RLM plus numbers, then RLM plus his birthday. Nothing worked. I was running out of time. Marcus was starting to stir beside me. I closed the laptop and put it away, my heart pounding. I'd have to be more careful, more patient. I couldn't risk him catching me snooping, or he'd change all his passwords and I'd lose any chance of finding evidence. We landed in Tahiti for our connection, then took a smaller plane to Bora Bora. By the time we arrived at our overwater bungalow at the Four Seasons, it was late afternoon. The place was absolutely stunning, exactly what I'd dreamed of for a honeymoon. Crystal clear turquoise water stretched out beneath our private deck. Inside, the room was all white linens and dark wood, with a glass floor panel where you could watch tropical fish swimming below. "This is incredible," Marcus said, pulling me into his arms. 2 weeks of paradise with my beautiful wife. I'm the luckiest man alive. He tried to kiss me, and I let him briefly before pulling away. "I want to take a shower. The flight was so long. Want company?" He waggled his eyebrows suggestively. "I'll be quick," I said, grabbing my toiletry bag and escaping to the bathroom. Under the hot water, I finally let myself feel everything I'd been holding back: rage, betrayal, humiliation, grief. I pressed my hand against my mouth to muffle the sobs, letting the shower drown out the sound. I cried for the life I'd thought I was building, for the sister I'd loved and trusted, for the man I'd believed would be my partner forever. Then I dried my tears, fixed my face, and walked back out into the bedroom with a smile. For the next 3 days, I played the perfect bride. We swam in the lagoon, went snorkeling, had romantic dinners on our deck at sunset. Marcus was attentive, affectionate, constantly taking photos of us together to post on social media. "Look at us," the photos said. "Look at how in love we are. Look at how perfect everything is." But at night, when Marcus fell asleep, I stayed awake working. I'd brought my tablet, telling Marcus it was for reading books on the beach. What I actually used it for was research. I contacted a lawyer friend from law school, someone I trusted completely, and asked hypothetical questions about divorce proceedings in Washington state. I researched private investigators. I made lists of all our shared assets, all the financial ties that would need to be untangled. On the 4th day, Marcus left the bungalow early for a scuba diving excursion I'd begged off from, claiming I wasn't feeling well. The moment he was gone, I tore through his belongings like a woman possessed. His suitcase, his toiletry bag, his backpack. I found his iPad in the inside pocket of his backpack and powered it on. It wasn't password protected, careless but typical of Marcus's arrogance. He never thought anyone would go through his things. I opened his Messages app, and there it was, everything I needed. Months of text conversations with Rebecca downloaded from his phone and synced to his iPad. My hands shook as I scrolled through them. The messages went back almost a year, starting just 2 months after Marcus proposed to me. Rebecca had texted first. "Thanks for the advice about Jake. You were right, he wasn't worth my time." Marcus had replied, "Anytime. Sarah's lucky to have a sister who cares so much about her happiness." Innocent enough. But then the messages got more frequent, more personal. Rebecca complaining about her thesis advisor. Marcus venting about a difficult client. Late-night conversations that stretched for hours. Then the shift subtle at first, but unmistakable. Rebecca saying she wished she could find a guy like Marcus. Marcus saying Rebecca deserved someone who appreciated her. Compliments that crossed the line from friendly to flirtatious. Then came the message that changed everything. 3 days after Christmas, Rebecca had texted, "I can't stop thinking about you. I know it's wrong. I know you're with my sister. But I had to tell you." Marcus's response came 2 hours later. "I've been trying not to think about you, but I can't help it. You're incredible, Rebecca." From there it spiraled. Plans to meet up. Excuses they'd tell me. Hotels they'd book. And worse, much worse, were the things they said about me. Marcus calling me boring, predictable, too focused on work. Rebecca saying I'd always been uptight, that I didn't know how to have fun. Both of them laughing about how clueless I was, how I suspected nothing. One message from Marcus made me want to throw the iPad against the wall. Sometimes I wonder if I'm marrying the wrong sister. But Sarah's stable, reliable. She'll make a good wife, a good mother. You and I were too similar. We'd burn each other out. Rebecca's response was even worse. "So I get to be your secret while she gets to be your wife. That doesn't seem fair." Life isn't fair, babe. But we can make this work. After the wedding, after things settle down, we'll figure it out. Maybe in a few years when kids come along and Sarah's distracted, we can be more open about this. I took photos of everything. Hundreds of screenshots documenting the entire affair. Messages about the hotel rooms they'd booked. Receipts Rebecca sent him for lingerie she bought. Photos they'd send each other, some explicit enough to make me sick. Evidence of them meeting up while I was at work at client dinners during the nights Marcus said he was working late at the office. There was even a message from the morning of our wedding. "Today's going to be hard," Rebecca had written. "Watching you marry her." Marcus replied, "Just remember the dance. That's my gift to you. Everyone will know who I really love." The dance. That humiliating, devastating moment at my wedding wasn't an accident or a lapse in judgment. It was deliberate. A message to Rebecca that she was the one who mattered, a public claim on her that I was too naive to understand. Everyone at that wedding had probably figured it out, except me. I heard Marcus's voice outside talking to someone on the path back to our bungalow. I quickly closed the iPad and shoved it back where I'd found it, my heart hammering. By the time he opened the door, I was sitting on the deck in a sundress, a book in my lap, looking peaceful. "Hey, beautiful," he called out. "You feeling better?" "Much better," I said, turning to smile at him. "How was the diving?" "Amazing, I wish you'd come. We saw a manta ray." He was tan and wet from the ocean, looking exactly like the adventure-loving guy I'd fallen for. But now I knew it was all a lie. Every smile, every touch, every word of love was contaminated by what he'd done with my sister. That night at dinner, I ordered the most expensive wine on the menu and drank more than I usually would. Marcus seemed pleased, thinking I was finally relaxing into the honeymoon. "You've seemed a little distant since the wedding," he said, reaching across the table to take my hand. "Everything okay?" This was my opening to confront him, to throw the evidence in his face and end this charade. But I wasn't ready yet. I needed more time, more preparation. I needed to protect myself financially and emotionally before I went to war. "I've just been in my head too much," I said, "worried about work, about the merger with Peterson and Associates. You know how I get." He smiled, relieved. "You work too hard, Sarah. You need to learn to let go, sometimes have fun. Maybe that's something I can teach you." The condescension in his voice was breathtaking. "Maybe it is," I said sweetly. When we got back to the bungalow, Marcus wanted to have sex. I couldn't avoid it anymore without raising suspicions, so I let him kiss me, touch me, undress me. I closed my eyes and thought about divorce lawyers, about asset division, about revenge. I made the appropriate sounds at the appropriate times. I played my part. Afterward, while Marcus slept contentedly beside me, I slipped out onto the deck with my phone. It was late morning in Seattle. I texted Jessica. "I need you to do something for me. Don't ask why, just trust me." She responded immediately. "Anything. What do you need?" "Go to my apartment. There's a fireproof box in the back of my closet. The combination is my birthday. Inside is my passport, some cash, and my emergency credit cards. Keep them safe for me." "Sarah, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "I'll explain when I get back. Just please do this for me today." "On my way now." Next, I texted Amanda. "I need a recommendation for the best divorce lawyer in Seattle, someone ruthless." Her response took longer. "Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'll send you 3 names tomorrow." I sat on that deck, looking at the stars reflected in the dark water, and felt something shift inside me. The old Sarah, the one who believed in fairness and honesty and doing the right thing, was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone who understood that in order to survive what was coming, I had to be willing to fight dirty. The next morning, I woke up before dawn and went for a run on the beach. When I came back, Marcus was awake looking at his phone with a worried expression. "Everything okay?" I asked. He looked up startled. "Oh yeah, just work stuff. Nothing important." But I'd seen the name on his screen before he closed the message. Rebecca. At breakfast, I made conversation about our plans for the day. I was thinking we could rent jet skis, or maybe go parasailing. Marcus seemed distracted. "Actually, do you mind if I skip this morning? I need to handle some work calls." "On our honeymoon?" "I know, I'm sorry, it's just this one client. I'll make it up to you this afternoon, I promise." I agreed, acting disappointed, and went to the resort spa for a massage I'd booked. But instead of going to the spa, I circled back and hid near our bungalow, where I could see, but not be seen. 15 minutes after I'd left, Marcus came out with his phone pressed to his ear, walking down the beach in the opposite direction. I followed him at a distance, staying hidden behind palm trees and other bungalows. He walked for about 10 minutes until he reached a more secluded part of the beach. Then he sat down on the sand, and I heard him talking, though I couldn't make out the words. I crept closer, using a large rock formation as cover. Now I could hear him clearly. "I miss you too, baby. This is harder than I thought it would be." Silence while Rebecca responded. "No, everything's fine. She doesn't suspect anything. The dance didn't even register for her. She's so trusting it's almost sad." More silence. 2 weeks feels like forever. "But when I get back, we'll figure this out. Maybe we can meet at that hotel in Portland you like." My phone was in my hand. I started recording video capturing Marcus sitting on that beach, talking to my sister, planning their next rendezvous while on his honeymoon with me. "I love you too, Rebecca. More than you know. More than I'll ever love her." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept recording, kept gathering evidence. After a few more minutes, Marcus ended the call and sat there staring at the ocean. I could see his face in profile, and he looked troubled, conflicted. Good. He should feel guilty. It wouldn't save him, but at least he wasn't completely sociopathic. I slipped away before he could see me and actually went to the spa getting that massage I'd booked. I needed to look relaxed and pampered when Marcus returned. I needed him to think everything was normal. For the rest of the honeymoon, I collected evidence. I recorded conversations. I took screenshots. I documented every time Marcus snuck away to text or call Rebecca. I created a hidden folder on my cloud storage and backed up everything, then created 2 more backup copies on separate services. I wasn't taking any chances that this evidence would disappear. I also started making financial moves. I transferred $5,000 from our joint account back into my personal savings, telling Marcus I was paying off a credit card. I updated my will, removing him as beneficiary and replacing him with Jessica. I opened a new checking account at a different bank just in my name. Every night I lay beside my husband and planned his destruction. Every morning I woke up and played the role of loving wife. It was exhausting, but I'd discovered something important about myself during those 2 weeks in paradise. I was capable of a level of deception I'd never imagined. Marcus and Rebecca thought they were the clever ones, the ones getting away with something. But they were amateurs compared to what I was becoming. On our last day in Bora Marcus surprised me with a romantic dinner on the beach. The resort had set up a private table for two, complete with tiki torches and a violinist playing softly nearby. It was exactly the kind of gesture I would have melted over 2 weeks ago. "I know I haven't been the most attentive husband this week," Marcus said, pouring me champagne. "Work has been crazy, but I want you to know how much you mean to me, Sarah. You're my rock, my partner. I'm so lucky to have you." I smiled at him across the candlelight. "I'm lucky too. When we get home, things are going to be different. I'm going to be more present, more focused on us. We're going to build an amazing life together." "I believe you," I lied. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I got you something, an extra wedding gift." And inside was a stunning diamond bracelet, delicate and expensive. It must have cost at least $10,000. Money we didn't really have to spare, but Marcus was never good with budgets. "It's beautiful," I said, and it was. He clasped it around my wrist. "A beautiful bracelet for a beautiful wife. I love you, Sarah." "I love you too," I said, and watched him relax, confident once again that he'd fooled me completely. That night, I wore the bracelet to bed. In the morning, I'd make sure to document its purchase price for the divorce proceedings. Everything Marcus bought me from this point forward was evidence of marital assets I'd be entitled to half of. The flight home was easier than the flight there. I'd spent 2 weeks building my case, gathering my evidence, preparing for war. Marcus chatted happily about getting back to work, about the projects he had lined up, about starting to look at houses in the suburbs. "Maybe we should start trying for a baby soon," he said. "I think you'd be an amazing mother." The thought of having his child, of being tied to him forever, made me want to vomit. But I just smiled and said, "Let's settle into married life first. There's no rush." We landed in Seattle on a gray November afternoon. Jessica picked us up from the airport, hugging me tight and whispering in my ear, "Everything's waiting for you. Just say the word." At home, Marcus carried me over the threshold of his apartment, which was now technically our apartment since I was on the lease. He set me down with a kiss and went to unpack. I went straight to my laptop and started downloading all the evidence I'd collected, organizing it into folders labeled by date and type. Text messages, photos, videos, financial records. I had enough to bury him. That night, Rebecca texted me, "Welcome home. How was Bora Bora? I want to hear everything." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, "It was amazing. Marcus was so romantic. I've never felt more in love." Her response came quickly. "That's wonderful. I'm so happy for you, Sarah. You deserve it." The lies, the manipulation, the sheer audacity of her pretending to be my loving sister while she was sleeping with my husband. I wondered how far she'd go to keep up the charade. I was about to find out. "We should have lunch this week," I wrote. "I missed you." "I'd love that Tuesday." "Perfect. Let's meet at that Thai place in Ballard you love." The same restaurant where Marcus had gotten that text from her, the one that had started me down this path. It felt fitting. On Monday morning, I went back to work at Morrison & Associates. My colleagues welcomed me back with cards and well wishes, asking about the honeymoon. I showed them photos, told funny stories, played the role of happy newlywed. But I also made an appointment with James Morrison, the founding partner, under the guise of discussing a complex client case. "Sarah, congratulations on the wedding," James said when I entered his office. "I hope married life is treating you well." "Thank you, James. Actually, I need some advice. Legal advice, but not about a client." His expression shifted, became more serious. "Of course, everything we discuss is confidential." I took a deep breath. "I need a referral to a divorce attorney, the best one you know, someone who can handle a complicated case with significant assets at stake." James leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You've been married for less than 3 weeks." "I know." "Sarah, you're one of my best analysts. Whatever you're dealing with, I want to make sure you're protected. Tell me what's going on." So I told him. Not everything, but enough. The affair, the evidence I'd collected, my concern that Marcus might try to claim he was entitled to half of everything I'd worked for. James listened without interruption, his expression growing darker. When I finished, he was silent for a moment. Then he picked up his phone and dialed. "Michael, it's James Morrison. I'm sending you a client, someone very important to me. She needs the best representation possible. Yes, I'll have her call your office today." He hung up and wrote down a name and number. "Michael Torres. He's a shark. Expensive but worth every penny. Tell him I sent you and he'll take your case." "Thank you, James." "Sarah, I want you to know that whatever happens, your job here is secure. And if you need any resources from the firm investigators, forensic accountants, anything at all, you let me know." I felt tears prick my eyes for the first time since the wedding. I appreciate that more than you know. That afternoon, I met Rebecca for lunch. She looked beautiful as always, wearing a designer sweater I recognized because I'd helped her pick it out last spring. She hugged me tight, asked about every detail of the honeymoon, oohed and awed over my photos. "You look so happy," she said, studying a photo of Marcus and me on the beach. "Marriage suits you." "It does," I agreed. "I feel like the luckiest woman in the world." "You deserve it, Sarah. After everything you've done for me, for our family, you deserve to be happy." I wanted to throw my water in her face. Instead, I smiled. "Speaking of which, I wanted to thank you again for everything you did for the wedding. The planning, the organizing, being there for me. I don't think I could have done it without you." Rebecca reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That's what sisters are for. I'd do anything for you." "I know you would," I said. "That's why I want to ask you a favor." "Anything." "Marcus and I are going to start looking at houses soon. You have such good taste. Would you help us? Come to showings with us, give us your opinion." Something flickered in Rebecca's eyes. "You want me to help you house hunt with your husband? Why not? You two got along so well during the wedding planning. And honestly, Marcus can be a bit practical about these things. I need someone who understands aesthetics, who can see the potential in a space." Rebecca pulled her hand back. "I don't know, Sarah. That seems like something you and Marcus should do together. It's an important decision. Please, it would mean so much to me. Plus, it'll give us a chance to spend more time together. I feel like we drifted apart a bit during all the wedding stress." She couldn't refuse without seeming suspicious. "Okay," she finally said. "I'd be happy to help." "Perfect. We're looking at a few places this Saturday. I'll text you the addresses." That night, I told Marcus about Rebecca helping us house hunt. He looked uncomfortable. "Is that really necessary? I mean, it's our house. Shouldn't it just be our decision? She's my sister Marcus, and she helped plan our entire wedding. I thought you liked her." "I do. I just think house hunting is something married couples usually do alone." "Well, we're not a usual couple," I said, moving closer to him on the couch. "We're better than that. We include the people we love in our lives. Isn't that what you always say?" He had said that multiple times when he was justifying why we spent so much time with our families instead of just the two of us. Now his own words were trapping him. "You're right," he said finally. "Of course Rebecca can come." I watched Marcus squirm for the rest of the week, watched him text Rebecca frantically when he thought I wasn't looking, watched the panic build in his eyes every time I mentioned how excited I was for Saturday's house hunting adventure. He suggested postponing it twice, claiming work emergencies, but I shut that down immediately. "We've had these appointments scheduled for weeks," I said. "The real estate agent is doing us a huge favor seeing us on a Saturday. We can't cancel now." Friday night, Rebecca called me. "Sarah, I'm really not feeling well. I think I'm coming down with something. Maybe I should skip tomorrow." "Oh no, that's terrible," I said, putting her on speaker so Marcus could hear from across the room. I watched his face flood with relief. "But you know what fresh air might help. And we'll only be looking at 3 houses. It won't take more than a few hours." "I really think I should stay home." "Please, Rebecca, I need you there. Marcus has been so weird about the houses we've seen online. I need someone on my side." I paused, then added, "Unless you don't want to spend time with me anymore." The guilt trip worked perfectly. "Of course I want to spend time with you." "Okay, I'll be there." Marcus's relief evaporated. When I hung up, he tried one more time. Maybe we should let her rest, Sarah. If she's sick, she probably doesn't want to drag herself around looking at houses. She'll be fine, I said. Besides, this will be fun, the three of us together. That night, Marcus barely touched me. He lay on his side of the bed, tense and awake, while I pretended to sleep. Around 2 a.m, I heard him get up and go into the bathroom. Through the door, I could hear him on the phone, his voice low and urgent. This is a nightmare. I don't know what she's doing. Maybe she knows. Maybe this is some kind of test. A pause. No, I can't just tell her I don't want you there. That would be even more suspicious. Another pause. We'll just have to act normal, professional, like we barely know each other. I smiled in the darkness. They had no idea what was coming. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray, typical Seattle weather for late November. I dressed carefully in jeans and a cream sweater, my wedding ring prominent on my left hand. Marcus wore a hoodie and looked like he hadn't slept. Rebecca showed up 10 minutes late wearing oversized sunglasses and claiming her headache was worse. We can reschedule, Marcus said immediately. Absolutely not, I said. Rebecca drove all the way here. We're going. The first house was in Ballard, a renovated Craftsman with original hardwood floors and a beautiful kitchen. Our real estate agent, Patricia, was a bubbly woman in her 50s who kept calling us lovebirds and talking about starting your family. This house is perfect for children, Patricia said, showing us the 3 bedrooms upstairs. 2 for kids, 1 for an office or guest room. I watched Marcus and Rebecca carefully. They were standing on opposite sides of the room, both looking everywhere except at each other. The tension was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. What do you think, Rebecca? I asked. You have such a good eye for these things. Rebecca glanced around, her expression strained. It's nice, very nice, just nice. Come on, give me more than that. Do you love it? Could you see us living here? I'm sure you and Marcus could be very happy here, she said, emphasizing the words you and Marcus like she was trying to convince herself. But what about the kitchen? Is it big enough? Marcus loves to cook. I turned to him. Don't you, honey? Marcus nodded stiffly. It's adequate. Rebecca loves to cook too. I continued as if I hadn't noticed their discomfort. Maybe she could come over for dinner parties. We could all cook together. That would be nice, Rebecca said weakly. Patricia beamed. How wonderful that you're so close with your sister. That's rare these days. We moved through the house slowly, and I made sure to ask Rebecca's opinion on everything. The bathroom fixtures, the closet space, the backyard landscaping. I played the role of enthusiastic wife, perfectly linking my arm through Marcus's, kissing his cheek, talking about our future in this house. And all the while, I watched them both suffer. The second house was in Fremont, a modern townhouse with an open floor plan and floor-to-ceiling windows. It was beautiful but impersonal, the kind of place that looked like a magazine spread but didn't feel like a home. I don't love it, I announced after the tour. It feels cold. What do you think, Rebecca? Rebecca was standing by the window staring out at the street. It's very modern. That's not what I asked. Do you like it? She turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Guilt. Fear. Sarah, I really don't think my opinion matters here. This is your house, your life. But it does matter. You're my sister. I value your opinion more than anyone's. I walked over to her and took her hand, noting how she flinched at my touch. Is something wrong? You've been acting strange all morning. I just don't feel well. Maybe we should take a break, Marcus interjected. Get some coffee or something. Great idea, I said. There's a cafe right around the corner. Patricia, do you mind if we take 15 minutes? Not at all. Take your time, lovebirds. The cafe was crowded, but I found us a small table in the corner. I sat between Marcus and Rebecca, forcing them to sit across from each other. A barista took our orders, and I made sure to order for Marcus something I knew he hated. She wanted a cappuccino, not a latte, Rebecca said automatically, then caught herself. I raised an eyebrow. How did you know that? You mentioned it once, Rebecca said quickly. I think. Did I? I don't remember. I turned to Marcus. Do you remember me mentioning my coffee preferences to Rebecca? Marcus looked like he wanted to dive under the table. I'm sure you did at some point. The coffees arrived and we sat in uncomfortable silence. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through photos of the houses. I think I'm leaning toward the first one, the Craftsman in Ballard. It has character history. Plus, the neighborhood is great for kids. You're thinking about kids already. Rebecca's voice was higher than normal. Of course. That's the whole point of getting married, isn't it? Building a family. I smiled at Marcus. We've been talking about starting to try soon. Haven't we, honey? Marcus took a long sip of his coffee before answering. We said we'd wait a bit. Well, I've been thinking. Why wait? We're married. We're stable. We both have good jobs. There's never a perfect time, right? I put my hand on his arm. I think we should start trying right away. Maybe by this time next year we'll have a baby. Rebecca stood up abruptly. I need to use the bathroom. I watched her flee toward the back of the cafe, then turned to Marcus. Is she okay? She's been acting really weird. She said she wasn't feeling well, Marcus muttered. Maybe it's something more than that. Maybe there's trouble with that guy she's been seeing. She hasn't mentioned him in weeks. I leaned closer. Has she said anything to you? Why would she say anything to me? Well, you two seemed close during the wedding planning. I just thought maybe she'd confided in you. Marcus's jaw tightened. We're not that close, Sarah. Really? Because at the wedding, when you danced with her, it looked like you were very close. I kept my voice casual, curious, not accusatory. That was just a thank you dance, for all her help. I know, but some people at the wedding said it looked like more than that. I paused, watching him carefully. Jessica mentioned that several guests were talking about how intimate it seemed. The color drained from Marcus's face. People need to mind their own business. I agree. But you have to admit, calling her the woman you've loved for 10 years was a bit much. We've only known her for 2 years. I meant as family, like a sister. That's not really what it sounded like, Marcus. Rebecca returned before he could respond, but the damage was done. Marcus knew I was starting to ask questions, starting to notice things. He was panicking, and panicked people made mistakes. We left the cafe and headed to the third house, a Craftsman in Capitol Hill, with a view of the Space Needle. It was my favorite so far, with exposed brick walls and a renovated basement that would make a perfect home office. The price was higher than we'd discussed, but I didn't care. I wasn't planning to actually buy it. This is the one, I announced after the tour. I love everything about it. Patricia clapped her hands together. Wonderful. Should we start talking about making an offer? Can we have a minute? Marcus asked. Of course I'll be outside. Once Patricia left, Marcus turned to me. Sarah, this house is way over our budget. We agreed on a price range. But it's perfect. And I can contribute more from my savings. I have the money. That's your money. You've worked hard for it. We shouldn't blow it all on a house. It's our money now. We're married. I walked over to the window, looking out at the view. Don't you want to give me the life I deserve, Marcus? The house I've always dreamed of. I could see him struggling, caught between not wanting to seem unsupportive and knowing he couldn't afford this house, especially not once I took him for everything in the divorce. Rebecca spoke up quietly. Maybe you should look at a few more houses before deciding. There's no rush. But I love this one, I insisted. Marcus, please. Let's think about it, he said finally. We don't need to decide today. I pouted, but agreed. On the drive back to the apartment, I was silent, letting them both think I was upset about the house. In reality, I was running through my mental checklist. The next phase of my plan required perfect timing and execution. That evening, I told Marcus I was going out with Jessica for dinner. Instead, I met with Michael Torres at his office downtown. The divorce attorney was exactly what I expected. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. James Morrison speaks very highly of you, he said, gesturing for me to sit. And I've reviewed the preliminary information you sent over. This is quite a case. Can you help me? I can absolutely help you, but I need to be clear about something, Mrs. Chen. You've been married less than a month. In Washington state, you're entitled to half of marital assets, but that's limited to what was acquired during the marriage. Unless there's significant commingling of assets, or you can prove fault, your settlement might be smaller than you're hoping for. I understand. but I have extensive documentation of an affair, emotional distress, and fraud. He lied to me about his feelings, about his relationship with my sister, about his intentions. He married me under false pretenses. Michael leaned back in his chair. Fraud is hard to prove in marriage cases, but infidelity is certainly grounds for divorce in Washington, even though we're technically a no-fault state. It won't get you more money, but it might affect spousal support arguments if he tries to claim any. Marcus makes almost as much as I do. He won't be able to claim spousal support. Good. Now let's talk strategy. You have two options. File immediately, which will shock him and might make him reactive and sloppy, or wait, let assets accumulate, let him think everything is fine, and strike when you have more to gain. How long should I wait? Ideally, a year. 2 would be even better. In that time, you can document spending patterns, asset acquisition, any gifts or transfers he makes to your sister. You can build an airtight case. The thought of spending another year pretending to be Marcus's loving wife made me feel sick. But Michael was right. The longer I waited, the more I'd walk away with, and the more devastating the blow would be. What do I need to do in the meantime? Document everything. Keep separate accounts for your income. Don't make any large purchases jointly if you can avoid it. If he inherits money or receives gifts from his family, make sure it stays separate from marital assets. And most importantly, don't give him any indication that you know about the affair or that you're planning to leave. I can do that. One more thing, Mrs. Chen. This is going to be emotionally exhausting. Lying to your spouse every day, playing a role, watching him betray you while you pretend not to notice. I've seen strong people break under that kind of pressure. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought about that dance at my wedding, about the text messages I'd read about Marcus whispering to my sister that he'd never love me the way he loved her. I thought about every time Rebecca had hugged me and told me she loved me while she was sleeping with my husband. I thought about the life I'd imagined, the future I'd planned, all of it built on lies. I'm sure, I said. Over the next few weeks, I settled into my double life with frightening ease. At work, I was productive, efficient. Sarah earning praise from clients and partners. At home, I was devoted wife Sarah cooking dinner and asking about Marcus's day. With Rebecca, I was loving Sister Sarah suggesting coffee dates and shopping trips. And underneath it all, I was calculating vengeful Sarah, documenting every penny, every lie, every secret meeting between my husband and my sister. I discovered they'd gotten sloppy since the wedding. Maybe they thought I was truly clueless, or maybe the guilt was eating at them and they needed the release of being together. Whatever the reason, they'd started meeting more frequently, taking bigger risks. I installed tracking software on Marcus's phone while he was in the shower one morning. It was expensive and possibly illegal, but I didn't care. The software showed me everywhere he went, and he went to Rebecca's apartment at least twice a week, always during hours he claimed to be at the gym or working late. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Sandra, who'd worked with Morrison and Associates on several fraud cases. She was worth every penny of her exorbitant fee. Within a week, she had photos of Marcus entering Rebecca's building, time-stamped and dated. Photos of them together at restaurants outside Seattle, thinking they were safe from prying eyes. Photos of them checking into a hotel in Portland for a weekend when Marcus had told me he was at a tech conference. I created a binder with all the evidence organized chronologically with tabs and labels. Text messages, photos, financial records showing Marcus's spending on hotels and gifts. Phone records showing hundreds of calls and texts between them. It was a prosecutor's dream, an airtight case of infidelity and betrayal. But I also played my part perfectly. I surprised Marcus with his favorite dinner. I initiated sex regularly enough that he wouldn't get suspicious. I laughed at his jokes and listened to his work stories. I was the perfect wife, attentive and loving, while inside I counted down the days until I could destroy him. Thanksgiving arrived, and my parents insisted on hosting at their house in Bellevue. Both Marcus and Rebecca would be there playing happy family while they carried on their affair behind my back. The thought of sitting through that meal made me want to scream, but I went with a smile on my face and a pie in my hands. Rebecca opened the door, and for a split second I saw fear in her eyes before she masked it with false warmth. "Sarah Marcus, Come in, come in. Mom's been cooking since dawn." The house smelled like turkey and stuffing, bringing back memories of childhood Thanksgivings, when things were simpler, when I'd trusted these people with my whole heart. Dad was in his recliner watching football, and Mom was bustling around the kitchen directing traffic and taste testing everything. "There's my married daughter," Mom said, pulling me into a hug. "Let me see that ring in natural light, still gorgeous." Marcus shook hands with Dad and settled in to watch the game. Rebecca and I helped Mom in the kitchen, and it felt surreal, the three of us together, like we'd been dozens of times before, except now I knew what Rebecca really was. "So how's married life treating you?" Mom asked, basting the turkey. "It's wonderful," I said. "Marcus is the best husband I could have asked for." Rebecca dropped a spoon, and it clattered loudly on the tile floor. "Sorry," she muttered, picking it up. "And when are you going to find someone?" Mom asked Rebecca. "I want both my daughters settled and happy." "I'm working on it, Mom." "What happened to that boy you were seeing, Jake, was it? That didn't work out." "Well, there's someone out there for everyone. Look at Sarah and Marcus. Perfect match." I watched Rebecca's face as Mom said this, watched the pain flicker across her features. Good. She deserved to hurt. At dinner, we sat around the large dining table, Marcus and I on one side, Rebecca across from us. Dad said grace, thanking God for family and blessings and new beginnings. I squeezed Marcus's hand during the prayer and felt him squeeze back. The meal was delicious, but I barely tasted it. I was too busy watching Marcus and Rebecca try not to look at each other, try not to let their feet touch under the table, try not to give themselves away. They were terrible at hiding it, really. How had I not noticed before? "Sarah, your father and I have been talking," Mom said over dessert. "We want to give you and Marcus a wedding gift." "Mom, you already gave us a generous check." "That was for the wedding. This is different." She smiled at Dad, who nodded. "We want to put a down payment on a house for you, something substantial enough that you won't be struggling with a mortgage." I froze with my fork halfway to my mouth. "Mom, that's too much." "Nonsense. You're our daughter. We want to help you start your life together properly." She turned to Marcus. "We're thinking $50,000. Would that help?" Marcus looked like someone had just handed him a winning lottery ticket. "That's incredibly generous. Thank you." But I was already calculating. If my parents gave us $50,000 for a house that would be a marital asset, Marcus would be entitled to half of any property purchased with it. My mother's generosity was about to make my divorce more complicated and more expensive. "Can we think about it?" I asked. "We're still house hunting, still figuring out exactly what we want." "Of course, honey. Just let us know when you're ready." After dinner, I volunteered to help Rebecca clean up while Marcus and Dad watched more football. In the kitchen with the door closed, Rebecca finally spoke. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." My heart rate spiked. Was she actually going to confess? What is it? She took a deep breath. "I think maybe I should move. Out of Seattle, I mean. There's a PhD program in California I've been looking at." "What? Why would you leave? Your whole life is here." "I just think it's time for a change. Time to start fresh somewhere new." I grabbed her arm, perhaps harder than necessary. "You can't leave? You're my sister. You're the only family I have besides Mom and Dad. You have Marcus now." "Marcus is my husband. That's different. I need you, Rebecca. Please don't go." She looked at me with something like anguish in her eyes. "Sometimes staying is harder than leaving." "What does that even mean?" "Nothing. Forget I said anything. I'm just feeling restless, that's all." But I knew what it meant. She wanted to leave because being around Marcus and me was torture for her, because watching him pretend to love me while she had to hide her feelings was killing her. Good. Let it kill her. "Promise me you won't make any decisions without talking to me first," I said. "I promise." We went back to the living room, and I spent the rest of the evening playing the perfect daughter and perfect wife, while inside I was recalculating my revenge timeline. If Rebecca left Seattle, everything would get more complicated. I needed to move faster than I'd planned. That night, lying in bed next to Marcus, I made a decision. I'd give it until the new year. 2 more months of playing this role, and then I'd file for divorce right after the holidays when they were both at their most vulnerable. It would be my gift to them, the truth they'd been too cowardly to tell me. But first, I had one more card to play. The next day, I called my mother. "Mom, Marcus and I have been talking about your generous offer. We'd love to accept it." "Wonderful. When should we meet with the bank?" "Actually, I have a different idea. What if instead of giving us the money for a down payment, you put it in a trust? That way, if anything ever happened, the money would be protected." "What would happen? You just got married." "I know, but you never know. People get sued. Businesses fail. I just want to make sure your generosity is protected, for your sake." Mom was quiet for a moment. "You know, that's actually very smart. Your father would approve. He's always worried about liability. Let me talk to our attorney." 2 weeks later, my parents set up an irrevocable trust with me as the sole beneficiary, funded with $50,000 designated for a house purchase. Marcus's name was nowhere on the paperwork. When I told him about it, I framed it as my parents being overly cautious, worried about protecting their assets. "It's annoying," I said, "but you know how Dad is. Former prosecutor, always thinking about worst-case scenarios. The important thing is we have the money for a house." Marcus didn't question it, too excited about the prospect of a nicer house than we could have afforded otherwise. He had no idea that when we divorced, that $50,000 would be mine alone, completely protected from division as marital property. December arrived with cold rain and early darkness. The holidays were approaching, and everywhere I looked, there were reminders of cheer and celebration and family togetherness. It made me want to smash things. Marcus suggested we host Christmas dinner at our apartment. "It'll be our first holiday as a married couple," he said. "We should make it special." I agreed, already planning how to use the occasion to my advantage. I sent out invitations to Marcus's parents, my parents, and of course Rebecca, one last family gathering before I burned it all to the ground. I also scheduled a meeting with Michael Torres for the first week of January. "I want to file right after New Year's," I told him over the phone. "I can't do this anymore." "We'll be ready," he assured me. "I've got the paperwork drafted. All you need to do is sign, and we'll serve him." Christmas Eve arrived, and I spent the entire day cooking and decorating, making everything perfect. I'd bought an expensive scotch for Marcus's father, a cashmere scarf for his mother, thoughtful gifts for everyone. And for Rebecca, I'd bought a silver necklace with a pendant that said, "Sisters Forever." The guests arrived around 6. Marcus's parents came first, his mother immediately finding things to criticize about the apartment, while his father made himself a drink. My parents showed up with wine and stories about their latest cruise. And finally Rebecca arrived, looking beautiful in a green velvet dress, carrying presents and apologies for being late. We ate dinner by candlelight, the apartment warm and festive with Christmas music playing softly in the background. I played the perfect hostess, making sure everyone's glasses were full, that conversation flowed smoothly, that no one noticed the undercurrent of tension between Marcus, Rebecca, and me. After dinner, we exchanged gifts. I watched as Rebecca opened her present from me, saw her face crumple slightly when she read the inscription on the necklace. "I love it," she whispered. "Thank you, Sarah." "It's perfect for you," I said, "because no matter what happens, we'll always be sisters. Nothing can change that." She put it on immediately, and I saw Marcus watching her, saw the longing in his eyes. They wanted to be together so badly, and here I was forcing them to sit here and pretend to lie to everyone, including themselves. Marcus's gift to me was a pair of diamond earrings, expensive and tasteful. "They match your bracelet from Bora Bora," he said as I opened the box. "More marital assets for the divorce settlement." "They're beautiful," I said, kissing him in front of everyone. "You're so thoughtful." The evening wound down around 11. My parents left first, then Marcus's parents. Rebecca started gathering her things, but I stopped her. "Stay a bit longer. Help me clean up. We barely got to talk tonight." She looked at Marcus, who was suddenly very interested in his phone. "I really should go." "Please, just for a little while." She agreed reluctantly, and I watched Marcus's discomfort grow as he realized his wife and mistress were going to be alone together while he was stuck in the same apartment, unable to intervene. In the kitchen, while Marcus disappeared into the bedroom claiming exhaustion, Rebecca and I washed dishes side by side like we had 1,000 times growing up. "Are you okay?" I asked. "You seemed sad tonight." "I'm fine, just tired." "Is this about that guy you were seeing? You never told me what happened with him." Her hands stilled in the soapy water. "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" "He's not available. Not really. And I thought I could handle it being second choice waiting for him to choose me. But it's killing me, Sarah. It's killing me to watch him with someone else and pretend I don't care." The confession hung between us. She'd just admitted to the affair without actually admitting it, probably hoping I'd somehow understand without her having to say the words. "Then leave him," I said quietly. "If he makes you this miserable, walk away." "I can't. I love him too much. Love shouldn't hurt like this, Rebecca." She turned to me with tears in her eyes. "What if he's the only person who will ever make me feel this way? What if I walk away and spend the rest of my life regretting it? Then he's not worth having." I dried my hands and touched her shoulder. "You deserve someone who chooses you first, who doesn't make you hide and wait and settle for scraps. You deserve better." "Do I though?" She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Maybe this is what I deserve. Maybe I'm getting exactly what I asked for." I should have felt triumphant watching her break down. Instead, I felt a twist of something that might have been pity. She loved Marcus, truly loved him in her selfish, destructive way, and she was suffering for it. But then I remembered that dance at my wedding, remembered her lying to my face for months, remembered every moment she'd pretended to be my loving sister while betraying me in the worst possible way. The pity evaporated. "You deserve happiness," I said, and meant it. "Just not with him. Whoever he is, let him go. Move to California like you were thinking. Start over fresh, where no one knows you, where you can be whoever you want to be." She wiped her eyes. "Maybe you're right. Maybe that's what I need. I know I'm right. And when you're settled and happy with someone who actually deserves you, someone who puts you first, you'll look back on this and wonder what you ever saw in him." She hugged me, then sobbing into my shoulder, and I held her like I had when we were kids and she'd fallen off her bike or lost a friend or had her heart broken by some boy who didn't matter. Except this time, I was the one who would break her heart, me and the truth she'd been running from. "I love you, Sarah," she whispered. "I'm sorry for everything. I'm so sorry." "I love you too," I said. And in that moment, horrifyingly, it was true. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the lies and the devastating hurt, she was still my little sister. Some part of me would always love her, even as I prepared to destroy her world. She left soon after, and I went to the bedroom where Marcus was still awake, scrolling through his phone. I climbed into bed beside him. "What did you and Rebecca talk about?" he asked carefully. "Sister stuff. She's going through something with a guy. I told her she should move to California, make a fresh start." Marcus sat up abruptly. "She's really leaving." "She's thinking about it. Why do you care?" "No, I just think it's sudden. She has her whole life here." Sometimes people need to run away from their problems. Maybe that's what Rebecca needs. I turned off the light. "Good night, Marcus." But Marcus didn't sleep. I could feel him lying there in the darkness, tense and awake, probably texting Rebecca to ask what I'd said, what I knew whether their secret was safe. Let him worry. Let him suffer. In 2 weeks, none of it would matter anyway. New Year's Eve came faster than I expected. Marcus wanted to go to a party his co-workers were throwing, but I suggested something more intimate instead. "Let's just stay home," I said. "Order takeout. Drink champagne, watch the ball drop. Our first New Year's as husband and wife should be special." He agreed, probably relieved he wouldn't have to pretend to be the happy newlywed in front of a crowd. We ordered Thai food from that restaurant in Ballard, the one where this whole nightmare had started. I wondered if he remembered if he felt any guilt at all eating pad Thai while his wife sat across from him planning his destruction. At 11:30, my phone rang. Rebecca's name lit up the screen. "I should take this," I said, walking into the bedroom. "Hello, Sarah." Her voice was thick with alcohol and tears. "I need to tell you something. I can't keep living like this." My heart hammered. Was she really going to confess on New Year's Eve, no less? What's wrong? Where are you? I'm at home. I've been drinking. I know I shouldn't call you like this, but I can't anymore. I can't keep lying to you. Rebecca, you're scaring me. Lying about what? There was a long pause, and I heard her breathing, heard her working up the courage. Marcus and I, we've been... Rebecca. Marcus's voice, faint but unmistakable, came through her phone. He was there. He'd gone to her apartment while I'd been in the other room. Who's there with you? I asked, playing dumb. No one. I'm alone. I'm sorry I'm drunk. I shouldn't have called. She hung up before I could respond. I walked back into the living room. Marcus was on the couch, phone in hand, looking guilty. Who were you texting? I asked, just wishing some friends Happy New Year. That's nice. I sat down next to him close enough that he couldn't easily use his phone without me seeing. Rebecca just called. She sounded really upset. Drunk, I think. Marcus tensed. Is she okay? I don't know. She said something about lying to me, but then she hung up. It was weird. I turned to him. Should we go check on her? Make sure she's safe? I'm sure she's fine. She probably just had too much to drink. But what if she does something stupid? What if she hurts herself? I stood up. I think we should go. I'll feel better if I see her with my own eyes. Sarah, it's almost midnight. If she wanted company, she would have invited us over. She's my sister Marcus. I'm going. I grabbed my coat and keys. Are you coming or not? He had no choice. If he refused, it would look suspicious. If he came, he'd have to face both of us together, knowing Rebecca had been seconds away from confessing everything. The drive to Rebecca's apartment took 15 minutes. I parked on the street and we walked up to her building, Marcus trailing behind me like a man heading to his execution. I buzzed her apartment. Who is it? Her voice was slurred. It's Sarah and Marcus. We're worried about you. Let us up. A long pause. Then the door buzzed open. Rebecca lived on the 3rd floor in a 1-bedroom apartment our parents helped pay for. When she opened the door, she was in sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, her hair messy, mascara smudged. She looked at Marcus with pure panic. Sarah, you didn't have to come all the way here. Of course I did. You sounded terrible on the phone. I pushed past her into the apartment. Have you eaten anything? You can't just drink on an empty stomach. The apartment was a mess. Empty wine bottles on the coffee table, tissues scattered everywhere. And there on the arm of the couch was Marcus's navy hoodie, the one he'd been wearing earlier today, the one he'd claimed he left at the gym. I picked it up slowly. This looks like Marcus's hoodie. Rebecca's face went white. He must have left it here during Christmas, when we were all here for that game night, remember? Except we'd never had a game night at Rebecca's apartment. She was lying badly, and she knew I knew. Right, I said slowly. The game night. Marcus jumped in. Yeah, I remember. I was wondering where that went. Funny how you didn't mention it was missing. This is your favorite hoodie. You wear it constantly. I held it up to my nose. It still smells like your cologne. It must have been very recently. Sarah, what are you implying? Marcus's voice had an edge to it. I'm not implying anything. I'm just finding it odd that your hoodie is at my sister's apartment when you supposedly left it here a month ago, but it still smells fresh. I looked between them. Unless you've been here more recently. I stopped by last week, Marcus said quickly, to drop off some wedding photos Rebecca wanted. I must have taken my hoodie off and forgot it. You never mentioned stopping by. It was quick, like 5 minutes. I didn't think it was worth mentioning. I sat down on the couch, still holding the hoodie. Rebecca, when you called, you said you'd been lying to me. What did you mean? Nothing. I was drunk. I wasn't making sense. It seemed like you were about to tell me something important, something about Marcus. I looked directly at her. Were you... She glanced at Marcus, and in that look, I saw everything. The love, the guilt, the desperation. No, I don't know what I was saying. I'm sorry I worried you. Are you sure? Because if there's something going on, something I should know about, I'd rather hear it from you. From both of you. You're the 2 people I trust most in the world. The room was completely silent, except for the sound of fireworks starting to go off outside. Midnight. The new year arriving, and neither of them could meet my eyes. There's nothing to tell, Marcus said finally. "Rebecca's drunk and emotional. You're reading too much into things. Can we please just go home?" I stood up, taking the hoodie with me. "Sure, but Rebecca, maybe you should think about that move to California. Seems like you need a fresh start." I walked to the door, then turned back. "Oh, and Happy New Year. To both of you." In the car, Marcus was silent. I drove us home, his hoodie on my lap, and neither of us spoke until we were back in the apartment. "Sarah, I know how that looked." "How did it look, Marcus?" "Like something was going on, but there isn't. Rebecca and I are friends. That's all. She's your sister. I would never..." "Never what?" "Never lie to me, never betray me, never make me look like a fool." I threw the hoodie at him. "I'm not stupid, Marcus. I see things. I notice things. And I'm starting to wonder if everyone at our wedding was right." "Right about what?" "About that dance. About the way you looked at her. About how you said she was the woman you'd loved for 10 years. I stepped closer to him. "Were they right, Marcus? Is there something between you and my sister?" This was it. The moment where he could come clean, where he could tell me the truth, and we could at least have honesty between us. I watched him weigh his options, saw him calculate the risks. "No," he said. "There's nothing between us. You're my wife. I love you. You're everything to me." And there it was, the final lie, the last nail in the coffin of whatever chance he might have had at redemption. "Okay," I said softly. "I believe you." The relief on his face was almost comical. "You do? Of course. You're my husband. Why wouldn't I believe you?" I kissed his cheek. "I'm tired. Let's go to bed. Start the new year fresh." That night, I lay next to Marcus and felt nothing. No love, no anger, no pain, just a cold, clear certainty about what I needed to do. Tomorrow, I would call Michael Torres and move up the timeline. I was done waiting, done pretending, done playing the fool. The next morning, while Marcus was in the shower, I called Michael's cell phone. "I need to file today, as soon as possible. Today it's New Year's Day. Everything's closed. Then tomorrow, first thing. I can't do this another day." "What happened?" "I went to my sister's apartment last night and found my husband's clothes there. They almost confessed. They're getting sloppy and I need to move before they decide to come clean on their own terms." "All right, come to my office at 9 tomorrow morning. Bring your evidence binder. We'll file by noon." I spent the rest of the day being the perfect wife. I made Marcus breakfast, suggested we watch movies, acted like everything was normal. And all the while I was mentally cataloging what I'd take from the apartment, what I'd leave behind, how I'd rebuild my life without him in it. At 8 that evening, my mother called. "Sarah, honey, your father and I need to talk to you about something. Can you come by tomorrow?" "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. We just need to discuss something important. Family business." I agreed to stop by before work, wondering what could be so urgent. When I arrived at my parents' house the next morning, both of them were sitting at the kitchen table looking serious. "What's going on?" I asked. Dad cleared his throat. "We got a call from our attorney yesterday. Someone's been asking questions about the trust we set up for you." My stomach dropped. "What kind of questions?" "Questions about whether Marcus has any claim to the funds, about what happens to the money if you divorce." Mom reached for my hand. "Sarah is there. Something you're not telling us." I could have lied, should have lied, but I was so tired of lying, and these were my parents. "Marcus is having an affair," I said. "With Rebecca. I've known since the wedding. I'm filing for divorce today." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face turned red, his hands clenching into fists. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. "Rebecca," Mom whispered. "Your sister, Rebecca. I have proof. Months of texts, photos, hotel receipts. They've been together almost since we got engaged." "That's impossible. Rebecca wouldn't, she couldn't." "She did. They both did. And they're still doing it. Last night I found Marcus's clothes at her apartment." Dad stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill them both." "Dad, sit down. Please. I have a lawyer. I'm handling this." "Handling it. Your husband is sleeping with your sister, and you're handling it." He was pacing now, his prosecutor instincts taking over. "What evidence do you have? Can you prove it?" I can prove everything. I've been documenting it for months. I have text messages, photos, financial records, witness statements. Michael Torres is representing me." Dad nodded approvingly. "Torres is good. He'll bury Marcus." Then his face crumpled. "But Rebecca, our Rebecca, how could she do this to you, to our family?" Mom was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. "Where did we go wrong? How did we raise a child who could do something like this?" "You didn't do anything wrong. Rebecca made her own choices." I stood up. "I need to go. I have a meeting with my lawyer in an hour. I just wanted you to hear it from me before everything becomes public." "What happens now?" Mom asked. "Now I file for divorce. I take Marcus for everything he has, and Rebecca shall have to live with what she's done." "What about us?" Mom's voice was small. Do we cut her off?" "That's your decision. She's your daughter, but she's not my sister anymore. Not after this." Dad walked me to the door. "Sarah, I want you to know how proud I am of you. The way you've handled this, the strength you've shown. Not many people could do what you're doing." "I don't feel strong. I feel broken." "Broken things can be repaired, and you'll come back from this stronger than before. I know you will." He hugged me tight. "Call me if you need anything at all, and when this goes to court, I'll be there, right in the front row." I drove to Michael's office with my parents' blessing and their rage fueling me. The evidence binder sat on the passenger seat, months of betrayal condensed into organized tabs and labeled sections. When I walked into the conference room, Michael had the divorce papers ready. "Standard petition for dissolution of marriage," he explained, citing irreconcilable differences. "We're not mentioning the affair in the initial filing, but we have it all ready if he contests anything." I signed my name on the papers, and each signature felt like a small act of liberation. Sarah Mitchell Chen, soon to be just Sarah Mitchell again. "What happens after I file?" I asked. "A process server will deliver the papers to Marcus, typically at his workplace or home. You should plan to not be there when he receives them." "I want to be there." Michael raised an eyebrow. "That's unusual and not recommended." "I don't care. I want to see his face when he realizes what's happening. I've earned that much." "All right. If that's what you want, I can arrange it. The server will come to your apartment this afternoon around 5. Make sure you're home." I spent the rest of the day in a daze. I went to work, sat through meetings, responded to emails. Jessica kept giving me concerned looks, but I couldn't talk about it yet. Not until the papers were served. Not until it was real. At 4:30, I left the office and drove home. Marcus would be there by 5. He'd texted earlier saying he was leaving work early. I sat in the apartment waiting, my heart hammering in my chest. At 5:15, there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find a process server, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes. "Sarah Chen," she asked quietly. "That's me." "Is Marcus Chen home?" "He will be in a few minutes. Can you wait?" She nodded and stood in the hallway. 3 minutes later, Marcus came up the stairs, loosening his tie, looking tired from his day. He saw me standing at the open door with a stranger, and confusion crossed his face. "Sarah, what's going on?" The process server stepped forward. "Marcus Chen, yes, you've been served." She handed him the papers. "Have a good evening." She left quickly, and Marcus stood there in the hallway staring at the envelope in his hands. He looked at me, then at the papers, then back at me. "What is this?" "Open it and see." His hands shook as he tore open the envelope. I watched his face as he read the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage," watched the color drain from his cheeks, watched reality set in. "You're divorcing me." His voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." "But we just got married. We've only been married 2 months." "Long enough for me to realize I married a liar." He dropped the papers, stepped toward me. "Sarah, please. Whatever you think is going on, we can talk about this. We can work through it." "Can we work through you sleeping with my sister? Can we work through months of lies and betrayal? Can we work through you telling her you loved her more than you'd ever love me?" His face confirmed everything. "You know, I've known since our wedding, since that dance where you publicly humiliated me in front of everyone we know. I've known and I've been documenting every single lie since then. Sarah, I can explain. Explain what? Explain how you got engaged to me while you wanted my sister. Explain how you married me while you were sleeping with her. Explain how you planned to keep this going after we had kids. I stepped closer to him. I've read your texts, Marcus. All of them. I've seen the photos. I have hotel receipts and phone records and witness statements. I know everything. He sank down onto the stairs, his head in his hands. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But it did. And now you'll pay for it. Does Rebecca know about the divorce? Not yet, but she will soon enough. Marcus looked up at me with tears in his eyes. I'm sorry. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. Every day, every lie, every time you touched me while thinking about her. You destroyed me. I felt my own tears coming, but I forced them back. You need to leave. Tonight. Pack your things and get out. This is my apartment. Actually, it's our apartment. I'm on the lease, and I'm staying. You can go to a hotel, go to Rebecca's, I don't care. But you can't be here. Sarah, please. Can't we at least talk about this? There's nothing left to say. My lawyer will be in touch about asset division. Until then, don't contact me. Don't come to my work. Don't call or text. We communicate through our attorneys from now on. He stood up slowly like an old man. I love you. I know you don't believe me, but I do love you. No, Marcus, you love yourself. You love the idea of having everything you want without consequences. But you never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have been able to do what you did. I went inside and locked the door, leaving him in the hallway with his divorce papers and his shattered illusions. Through the door, I heard him call Rebecca. She knows, he said. She's divorcing me. She knows everything. I couldn't hear Rebecca's response, but I heard Marcus crying. Heard him tell her he loved her, that they'd figure this out, that maybe this was for the best. Then I heard his footsteps going down the stairs, heard the building door close, and I was alone. Finally, completely alone. I slid down the door to the floor and let myself fall apart. I cried for the marriage I'd wanted, for the sister I'd lost, for the naive woman I'd been, who believed in love and trust and happily ever after. But even as I cried, part of me felt lighter. The pretending was over. The lies were done. Now came the hard part, rebuilding my life from the ashes of everything I'd lost. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Sarah, please call me. I need to talk to you. I need to explain. I blocked her number without responding. Then I called Jessica. It's done, I said when she answered. I filed. He's been served. It's over. Oh, Sarah, are you okay? Do you want me to come over? No, I need to be alone tonight. But tomorrow, I'm going to need help packing up all his stuff. I'll be there first thing in the morning, with coffee and donuts and whatever else you need. Thank you. For everything. For believing me when I told you what was happening, for not telling me I was crazy. You're not crazy. You're the strongest person I know. After we hung up, I walked through the apartment looking at all the signs of our life together. Wedding photos on the walls, his clothes in the closet, his toothbrush by the sink. All of it would have to go. All traces of Marcus Chen would be erased from my life. I took down the wedding photos first one by one and stacked them in a box. In one photo, I was laughing at something Marcus had said. In another, we were cutting the cake, feeding each other with our eyes locked. In the photo I lingered on longest, Marcus and Rebecca were dancing, and the look on both their faces was unmistakable. Love. Real, painful, complicated love. I'd been so blind. Everyone at that wedding had seen it except me. They'd gone home and talked about it, posted about it, wondered if the bride knew her husband was in love with someone else, and I'd smiled through it all, so trusting, so naive. Never again. Around midnight, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Sarah? It was Rebecca calling from a different phone. Please don't hang up. Please just listen. I should have hung up. Should have blocked this number too. But I needed to hear what she'd say. Needed to know if there was any remorse, any understanding of what she'd done. I'm listening. I'm so sorry. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. You made it happen. I know. I was selfish and horrible, and I hurt you in the worst way possible. But Sarah, I love him. I know I shouldn't. I know it's wrong, but I love Marcus, and I can't just turn that off. So this is it. You're choosing him over me. I'm not choosing anyone. I already lost you. The moment I started this, I lost my sister, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. Good. I hope it haunts you. I hope every time you look at him, you remember what you destroyed to have him. I deserve that. I deserve all of it. She was crying now. But please, Sarah, don't shut Mom and Dad out of this. They don't deserve to lose both their daughters. I'm not shutting them out. You are. You're the one who betrayed this family. I know, and I'll leave Seattle like I said. I'll go to California and you'll never have to see me again. But please, before I go, can we meet? Can I explain? There's nothing to explain. I know everything. I've known for months. There was a long silence. You've known since the wedding. Since the dance. Since I watched my husband tell 200 people that you were the woman he loved. I've known, and I've been planning this ever since. Oh, God, her voice broke. All those times we had coffee, when you asked me to help with the house hunting, when you gave me that necklace at Christmas. You were playing us. I was protecting myself, gathering evidence, making sure when I destroyed your lives, it would be complete and total. You're not the person I thought you were. Neither are you, Rebecca. Neither are you. I hung up and blocked the new number. Then I turned off my phone completely and went to bed in the apartment that was now solely mine, in a bed that Marcus would never sleep in again. The next morning, Jessica arrived at 8 with coffee, donuts, and Amanda. The three of us spent the day packing up Marcus's belongings. His clothes, his books, his tech equipment, all of it went into boxes. I found more evidence as we packed. Receipts tucked in pockets, a burner phone hidden in his sock drawer with hundreds of texts to Rebecca, a journal where he'd written about his feelings about being torn between two women, about choosing security over passion. What a piece of work, Amanda said, reading over my shoulder. He literally wrote that he was staying with you for your money and stability. At least he was honest in his journal, I said bitterly. We stacked all the boxes in the hallway for Marcus to pick up. I texted his best friend the address and said Marcus had 24 hours to collect his things or I'd donate them. By the end of the day, the apartment looked completely different. Lighter, emptier, more mine. Jessica ordered pizza, and we sat on the floor eating and drinking wine from the bottle. What happens now? She asked. Now I wait for the divorce to be finalized. Michael says it'll take about 90 days since we don't have kids or complicated assets. Marcus will probably try to negotiate, but I'm not giving him anything more than the law requires. And Rebecca? Rebecca's moving to California. She'll be gone by the end of the month, and I'll never have to see her again. Your parents, they're devastated. Dad wants to disown Rebecca. Mom keeps crying and asking where she went wrong. I told them it's not their fault, but I don't know if they believe me. Amanda topped off my wine. For what it's worth, I think you handled this perfectly. You didn't let your emotions control you. You planned, you prepared, and you struck when you were ready. That takes incredible strength. It doesn't feel like strength, it feels like survival. Sometimes they're the same thing. That night alone again, I finally let myself feel everything I'd been holding back for months. The grief, the rage, the humiliation, the loss. I cried until I had no tears left, until my body ached and my head pounded. I cried for the woman I'd been who believed in love and trust and family. I cried for the life I'd planned, the children I'd wanted, the future that would never exist. And when I was done crying, when I'd emptied myself of every emotion, I felt something new. Not peace, not yet, but determination. I would survive this. I would rebuild. And I would never, ever let anyone make me feel this way again. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I expected. Marcus's attorney tried to negotiate claiming emotional distress and asking for a portion of my separate assets, but Michael shut that down immediately. Your client committed adultery with the petitioner's sister, Michael said during our first mediation meeting. If we go to trial, every detail of that affair becomes public record. Is that really what Mr. Chen wants? Marcus sat across the conference table looking like he'd aged 10 years. He'd lost weight, his clothes hung loose on his frame, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Part of me felt a twinge of something that might have been pity, but then I remembered finding his journal, reading his words about choosing me for stability while loving Rebecca for passion. I just want this to be fair, Marcus said quietly. I'm not trying to take anything from Sarah that isn't rightfully mine. Good, Michael replied. Then you'll agree to waive any claim to the trust fund established by Mrs. Chen's parents, the jewelry gifted during the marriage, and the furniture she purchased before your wedding. Marcus's attorney, a tired-looking man named Robert, leaned in to whisper something. Marcus nodded. I agree to those terms, but I'd like to keep the Tesla. I was making the payments before we got married. The Tesla was purchased 6 months after your engagement, I said. It was the first time I'd spoken directly to Marcus since serving him papers. You used money from our joint account for the down payment. Sarah, please. It's just a car. It's a $60,000 car that you purchased with my money while you were sleeping with my sister. You don't get to keep it. Michael held up a hand. Let's table the vehicle discussion. We have bigger issues to address like the joint bank account and the apartment lease. We spent 3 hours hammering out details. Marcus would get half of the joint account balance, minus the $40,000 I could prove I'd contributed from my personal savings. He'd sign off the apartment lease immediately. All wedding gifts would be divided based on who gave them. The Tesla would be sold, and we'd split the proceeds. By the end of the meeting, Marcus looked defeated. Is there anything else you want from me, Sarah? My kidney. My firstborn child. What else can I give you to make this right? Nothing you have could ever make this right, I said, but I'll settle for everything the law says I'm entitled to. Walking out of that conference room felt like the first full breath I'd taken in months. Jessica was waiting in her car outside the building, and when I climbed in, she took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. How'd it go? He's not fighting anymore. Michael thinks we can finalize everything within 60 days. That's amazing. Are you okay? I don't know what okay feels like anymore, but I'm surviving. We drove to a bar in Capitol Hill, one of those dark, intimate places where no one would recognize us. Over whiskey sours, Jessica told me about the rumors circulating through Seattle's social scene. Everyone knew about Marcus and Rebecca. The wedding guests had talked, the story had spread, and now both of them were social pariahs. Marcus got fired, Jessica said. Well, technically he resigned, but everyone knows his boss gave him an ultimatum. The company didn't want the scandal. Good. And Rebecca, she's definitely leaving. I heard she's moving to San Diego. Got accepted to some PhD program there. Even better. The farther away, the better. Your parents are holding up. Not really. Dad's furious. He won't even say Rebecca's name anymore, just calls her your mother's other daughter. And Mom, she's heartbroken. She keeps saying she failed as a parent, that she should have seen the signs. I finished my drink. I keep telling her it's not her fault, but I don't think she believes me. A week later, Rebecca showed up at my office. Security called to say I had a visitor, and when I heard her name, my first instinct was to tell them to throw her out. But curiosity won. I wanted to see her one last time, wanted to look her in the eye and see if there was any remorse. She was waiting in the lobby, looking smaller than I remembered. She'd cut her hair short, dyed it dark brown instead of blonde. Without the carefully crafted Instagram aesthetic, she looked ordinary, tired. "Thank you for seeing me," she said when I approached. "I have 10 minutes. That's it." We went outside to a small park across the street. It was February now, cold and gray, the kind of Seattle weather that seeps into your bones. Rebecca wrapped her coat tighter around herself. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said. "I wanted to say goodbye." "Goodbye then." "Sarah, please. Can we talk, really talk? What's left to say?" She sat down on a wet bench, not caring that it would ruin her coat. "I need you to understand something. I never meant to hurt you. I know that sounds hollow. I know it doesn't change anything, But it's true. You slept with my husband for a year. You came to my wedding. You stood next to me as my maid of honor while you were having an affair with the groom. How is any of that not meant to hurt me? I wasn't thinking about you. I was only thinking about myself, about what I wanted. I was selfish and cruel, and I destroyed everything. But Sarah, I loved him. I still love him. Do you think that makes it better, that you destroyed my life for love? She wiped tears from her cheeks. No, nothing makes it better. I'm a terrible person, and I have to live with that. But I need you to know that losing you, losing your trust and your love, it's worse than anything else. Worse than Mom and Dad disowning me. Worse than leaving Seattle. Worse than knowing everyone in our social circle thinks I'm trash. Good. You deserve to feel that pain. I know, and I'll feel it for the rest of my life. She stood up, pulling an envelope from her pocket. I wrote you a letter. Everything I couldn't say, everything I wish I'd done differently. You don't have to read it. You can throw it away if you want. But I needed to give it to you. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Is that it? Is that your grand apology? No, there's no apology big enough for what I did. But I want you to know that Marcus and I were not together. We tried after everything came out. We tried to make it work to justify what we'd done by building something real, but we couldn't. Every time we looked at each other, we saw what we'd done to you. The guilt was too much. This surprised me. I'd assumed they'd run off together, finally free to have their grand love affair without hiding. You broke up 2 weeks ago. He couldn't handle the guilt, and I couldn't handle knowing I'd destroyed my family for a relationship that was always going to be poisoned by how it started. She gave a bitter laugh. Turns out Mom was right. Nothing good comes from betrayal. So you destroyed my marriage, destroyed our family, destroyed everything for nothing. For nothing, she confirmed. I gave up everything for a fantasy that couldn't survive reality. I should have felt vindicated, should have felt some sense of justice or satisfaction. Instead, I just felt empty. They'd ruined multiple lives and had nothing to show for it except pain and regret. I hope California works out for you, I said, and meant it. I hope you build a new life and find happiness. Just do it far away from me. I will. And Sarah, for what it's worth, you're going to be okay. You're the strongest person I know. You'll come back from this better than before. Don't pretend you know me anymore. You lost that right when you betrayed me. I walked away without looking back, leaving Rebecca sitting on that wet bench in the gray Seattle afternoon. I threw her letter in the trash can outside my office building without reading it. Whatever she had to say didn't matter anymore. She was a chapter of my life that was permanently closed. The divorce was finalized on March 15th, exactly 90 days after I filed. I went to the courthouse alone, dressed in a power suit, ready to officially end the shortest marriage in my family's history. Marcus was there with Robert, looking nervous. When the judge asked if we'd reached an agreement on all terms, we both said yes. The marriage of Sarah Mitchell Chen and Marcus Chen is hereby dissolved, the judge said, banging his gavel. You're both free to go. Just like that, it was over. 2 years of relationship, months of engagement, 1 disastrous wedding, and a 2-month marriage, all reduced to a judge's signature and a legal decree. Outside the courthouse, Marcus approached me. Sarah, wait. We're not married anymore, Marcus. You don't get to wait me. I know. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. Yes, I did. I heard you got promoted at work. Senior partner track. Congratulations. It was true. James Morrison had promoted me 2 weeks earlier, impressed by how I'd handled my personal crisis while maintaining perfect performance at work. Thank you. And I heard you're dating someone, that guy from your cycling class. This was also true, though dating was a generous term. I'd been on 3 coffee dates with a guy named David who made me laugh and didn't know anything about my past. It was casual light, exactly what I needed. Who I date is no longer your concern. Right, of course. He shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. I just want you to know that I regret everything. If I could go back and do it differently, I would. But you can't. None of us can. We just have to live with the choices we made. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? Not now. Maybe, but someday. I considered this. Did I want to forgive Marcus? Did I want to let go of the anger and hurt and betrayal? Maybe someday when enough time had passed and the wounds weren't so fresh, but not today. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe in 10 years I'll be able to think about you without feeling sick. Maybe in 20 years I'll be able to see you at some mutual friend's party and make polite small talk. But right now, I hope I never see you again. He nodded, accepting this. I understand. Take care of yourself, Sarah. I will. I'm very good at taking care of myself. I had to be. I walked to my car and drove away, leaving Marcus standing on the courthouse steps. In my rearview mirror, I saw him pull out his phone, probably calling someone to tell them it was finally over. Not Rebecca, they were done. Maybe his mother, maybe a friend. It didn't matter anymore. That night I celebrated with Jessica, Amanda, and a few other close friends at my favorite restaurant. We drank expensive wine and ate good food and toasted to new beginnings. My friends gave speeches about my strength and resilience. Jessica cried and said she was proud of me. Amanda presented me with a gift, a beautiful leather journal for writing about my healing journey. To Sarah, Jessica said, raising her glass, the strongest woman we know, may your next chapter be everything this one wasn't. We all clinked glasses and drank, and for the first time in months, I felt something like hope. My marriage was over. My sister was gone. My family was fractured. But I was still standing, still fighting, still surviving. A month later, I got a text from an unknown number, just 3 words. I'm getting help. It was Rebecca reaching out from California. I stared at those words for a long time, trying to decide how to feel. She was in therapy, presumably dealing with her issues, trying to become a better person. Good for her. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I would when the wounds had healed enough that I could think about her without anger. But not today. Instead, I forwarded the text to my mother. Mom had been devastated by everything caught between her 2 daughters, trying to understand how her family had imploded so spectacularly. She'd been seeing Rebecca's therapist too, trying to work through her own guilt and grief. Mom called me an hour later. She texted you, just to say she's getting help. That's good, that's a start. Mom's voice was fragile. Sarah, do you think we'll ever be a family again, all of us together? I don't know, Mom. Right now I can't imagine sitting at a table with Rebecca. But maybe in the future when everything isn't so raw. I miss you. I miss both my daughters being in my life. I'm still here, Mom. I'm not going anywhere. But you're different now, harder. And I hate that she did that to you. She was right. I was harder now, less trusting, more guarded. The naive woman who'd believed in fairy tale endings had died at her own wedding, replaced by someone more cynical, but also more resilient. Maybe being harder isn't a bad thing, I said. Maybe I needed to toughen up. Maybe. But I mourn the softness you lost. We talked for an hour about everything and nothing, trying to rebuild our relationship in the aftermath of Rebecca's betrayal. It wasn't easy. There were awkward silences and painful topics we had to navigate. But we were trying, and that counted for something. Summer arrived, bringing with it blue skies and warm temperatures. I spent weekends hiking with friends, taking long bike rides, rediscovering the city I'd lived in for a decade. David and I were officially dating, now nothing serious, but he was kind and made me laugh and didn't push for more than I could give. One Saturday in July, I was at the farmer's market in Ballard when I saw Marcus's mother, Helen. She was examining tomatoes at a produce stand, and our eyes met across the crowded aisle. For a moment, I thought about walking away, pretending I hadn't seen her, but she approached me first. Sarah, how are you? I'm well, Helen. How are you? Managing. She looked older than I remembered, more tired. I wanted to apologize. For Marcus, for everything. What he did was unforgivable. You don't need to apologize for your son's actions. I know, but I feel like I should have raised him better, taught him about loyalty and honor and keeping your promises. She paused. He's struggling, you know. Lost his job, had to move back home with us temporarily. He's interviewing for positions, but his reputation is destroyed in Seattle. I should have felt satisfaction hearing this. Should have been glad Marcus was suffering consequences. But instead I felt nothing. His struggles weren't my concern anymore. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it in a distant, abstract way. "He asks about you sometimes, wonders how you're doing. Tell him I'm doing great, better than I ever was with him." Helen smiled sadly. "I will. You look happy, Sarah. That's good to see." We parted ways, and I continued shopping, filling my basket with fresh vegetables and flowers. It was true what I'd told Helen. I was happy, or at least happier than I'd been in a long time. The constant anxiety was gone, replaced by a sense of peace and freedom. That evening, David took me to a concert at the Paramount Theater. During the show, he reached for my hand, and I let him take it. This simple gesture, holding hands with someone who didn't carry any baggage or betrayal, felt revolutionary. "You're smiling," he said during intermission. "I am." "Good. You should smile more often. It suits you." He didn't know about Marcus, about Rebecca, about any of it. I'd told him I was divorced, but kept the details vague. He respected my privacy, didn't push for information I wasn't ready to share. Maybe someday I'd tell him the whole story, but for now, it was enough that he saw me as Sarah, not as the woman whose husband cheated with her sister. In September, I got an email from Rebecca. The subject line was empty, just her name as the sender. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. The email was long, several pages worth of text. She wrote about therapy, about the work she was doing to understand why she'd made such destructive choices. She wrote about her new life in San Diego, about her PhD program, about learning to be alone instead of seeking validation through relationships. She wrote about our childhood, about always feeling like she was competing with me, about resenting my success while simultaneously admiring it. "I know you probably won't respond to this," she wrote at the end. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness or your attention, but I needed you to know that I'm trying to become a better person. Not for you, not for Mom and Dad, but for myself. And maybe someday, if you ever feel ready, we could talk. Really talk, without all the anger and hurt between us. But I understand if that day never comes. I'll carry the weight of what I did for the rest of my life, and I'll accept whatever consequences come from it." I read the email 3 times, trying to figure out how I felt. There was genuine remorse in her words, real accountability. She wasn't making excuses or asking for forgiveness. She was just sharing her journey and leaving the door open if I ever wanted to walk through it. I didn't respond, but I didn't delete the email either. I saved it in a folder labeled "Maybe Someday" and moved on with my day. October came around again, marking 1 year since my disastrous wedding. I took the day off work and went to the coast, driving out to Olympic National Park to hike and think and mark this anniversary in solitude. Standing on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching waves crash against rocks hundreds of feet below. I thought about everything that had happened in the past year. I'd been betrayed, humiliated, divorced. I'd lost my sister and fractured my family. I'd been forced to question everything I believed about love and trust and relationships. It had been the worst year of my life, bar none. But I'd also survived. I'd fought back, protected myself, emerged stronger. I'd gotten a promotion at work, bought out Marcus's half of the Tesla, and kept it for myself, started dating again. I'd built a life that was entirely mine, not dependent on anyone else's approval or presence. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Thinking about you today. Love you so much." I texted back a heart emoji and put my phone away. The wind whipped my hair around my face, and I closed my eyes, breathing in the salt air, feeling the power of nature surrounding me. I'd come here alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. On the drive back to Seattle, I called Jessica. "I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "Ready to move forward, really move forward. I want to throw a party for my 30th birthday next month. Something big, something fun. Help me plan it." "Absolutely. Oh my God, yes. Party planning starts now." My birthday fell on a Saturday, and we rented out a rooftop venue in downtown Seattle. I invited everyone who'd supported me through the divorce, everyone who'd stood by me when the scandal broke. 50 people showed up, filling the space with laughter and music and love. David came as my date, bringing flowers and a gift certificate for a couple's massage. We'd been dating for 6 months now and things were getting serious. He'd finally asked about my divorce the week before, and I'd told him the whole story. His response had been perfect. "That must have been incredibly painful. I'm glad you got out." Not pity, not drama, just acknowledgement of my pain and respect for my strength. That's when I knew I could trust him, could maybe even love him someday. At midnight, Jessica made a toast. To Sarah, who survived the unsurvivable and came out stronger. To new beginnings, better men, and a future so bright we all need sunglasses. Everyone cheered and drank, and I looked around at all these people who'd shown up for me. Not because they felt obligated, but because they genuinely cared. This was my real family, the one I'd chosen, the one that would never betray me. As the party wound down, I stepped out onto the balcony for some air. The city spread out below me, lights twinkling like stars. Seattle had been the backdrop for my greatest humiliation, but it was also where I'd rebuilt myself. I wasn't running away. This was my city, my home, and I was staying. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello? Sarah, it's Rebecca." My breath caught. "How did you get this number?" "Mom gave it to me. I'm sorry, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I had to call. Dad had a heart attack. He's in the hospital." Everything else fell away. "Is he okay?" "He's stable. They did emergency surgery. Mom's with him now. She's been asking for you." "I'm on my way." I hung up and grabbed my coat, telling David I had a family emergency. He offered to drive me, but I needed to do this alone. I needed to see my father, to make sure he was okay, to be there for my mother. The hospital was quiet at this late hour, just the hum of machines and soft footsteps of nurses. I found my mother in the cardiac ICU waiting room, looking small and scared. She stood when she saw me, and I pulled her into a hug. "He's going to be okay," she said, crying into my shoulder. "The doctor said he's going to be okay." "Can I see him?" "Not yet. He's sleeping, but soon." We sat together in those uncomfortable plastic chairs, holding hands, waiting. And then Rebecca walked in carrying coffee from the hospital cafeteria. Our eyes met and time seemed to stop. She looked different, older, more serious. The playful girl I'd grown up with was gone, replaced by a woman who'd lived through consequences. She handed Mom a coffee and then held one out to me. "Peace offering," she said quietly. "I got it how you like it. 2 sugars, splash of cream." I took the coffee, our fingers brushing briefly. "Thank you." We sat on opposite sides of Mom, the 3 of us together for the first time in nearly a year. It was awkward and painful and necessary. When the doctor finally came out to say we could see Dad, we went in together, the Mitchell women broken but not destroyed. Dad looked so small in that hospital bed, hooked up to machines, his face pale. But when he saw us all standing there together, his eyes filled with tears. "My girls," he whispered. "All my girls." Mom took his hand, and Rebecca and I stood on either side of the bed. We stayed there for hours, taking turns holding his hand, telling him stories, reminding him of all the reasons he needed to fight and recover. As dawn broke outside the hospital windows, Dad fell into a peaceful sleep, and the doctor assured us he was out of danger. In the parking lot, as the sun rose over Seattle, Rebecca and I finally spoke. "I'm glad you came," she said. "He's my father. Of course I came." "I know. I'm glad. And Sarah, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect us to ever be close again. But I hope maybe someday we can be civil. For Mom and Dad's sake." I looked at my sister, this woman who'd caused me so much pain, who'd destroyed so much. And I saw what I'd become in her, the same hardness, the same scars. "Maybe," I said. "Someday, but not today." "Okay, that's fair." She got in her car and drove away back to California, back to her new life. I watched her go and felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of something like acceptance. I drove home as the city woke up around me, as the first light of morning painted the sky pink and gold. My phone had dozens of messages from the party guests checking on me, offering support. David had texted 3 times asking if I was okay, if I needed anything. I had people who loved me, a father who was going to recover a career. I was proud of a life I'd rebuilt from nothing. Marcus was just a painful memory now. Rebecca was a cautionary tale, and I was finally truly free. At home, I took a shower and changed into comfortable clothes. Then I opened my laptop and wrote an email to Rebecca. Just 3 words mirroring what she'd sent me months ago. I'm healing too. I hit send and closed the computer. The sun was fully up now, streaming through my windows, warming my face. I'd survived the worst year of my life. I'd been broken and had put myself back together stronger than before. And whatever came next, I knew I could handle it. Because I'd already survived the unsurvivable. Everything else would be easy in comparison.